Service Committee, December 19th, 2024.
Service Committee called to order at 6 p.m. Members present, Steve Sherrick, Kevin Myers, Zion Hickman, I myself, Chris Mertz, Chair. This time I'd like to turn it over for public participation, if anybody has anything.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. I have a problem with Chapter 931. I have contacted Mr. Moritz this afternoon. A couple people come up that does not want to face council or the mob and be put all over Facebook. Under Section 931.03, the rates and times of payments on page 36 under Section B. 62 years of age of both parties to get a reduction in their trash bill. A person contacted me today and asked me that if they have a caretaker that lives with them, that takes care of them, this does not apply to them because your ordinance says that it has to be both parties or how it's stated. Is this age discrimination? You know, the federal law says 55 is a protected class. The other thing, under that same section and same paragraph on 36, under the 100% disability, it states it's only for 2 years only. What happens after 2 years? Do they have to refile or is it a done deal? In talking to Chris this afternoon, I found out that the information that was put out to the public was incorrect. What is going on with incorrect information being given to the public? This is ridiculous. You know, the public is given only 24 hours to read this stuff over, to digest it before you come to a committee meeting. Yet it's the wrong information, once again. And this is not the first time, the second time, or the third time. It's being repeated over and over again. This needs to stop. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. White. Anyone else, public participation?
Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth. I don't really know what you guys got going on. I've tried to avoid your drama and your nonsense, but if I'm going to be here, I'm going to join in on it, okay? First, Kevin, why is it that your expected revenue is 5.3 million, but you have a budget for 5.
This is service, Rob. This is service.
Well, so do I have to come up here every time that you're talking about something else,
If you're
or?
talking finances, you have to wait to finance committee.
Okay, so now we're going to follow decorum, even though we know that you guys don't, right? Okay, that's fine.
Anyone else for public participation? Seeing none, I'll move on to approval of minutes for December 4th, 2024. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from the December 4th, 2024 regular service committee meeting.
I'll second.
Have a first by Aaron Sherrick, second by Zion Hickman. All in favor?
Aye.
Passes. We are going to table ERU. There's some work still needs to be done on numbers for that, so I do want to table that. Anybody have a problem with that? No. Also, as Mr. White stated, there are currently 2 versions that I found that are not correct, so that is also going to be tabled. Nobody has a problem with that. Chapter 9.
Chapter 9, yes.
Hundreds.
Chris is the one that we, as committee members, were sent the final.
Right. That was
Okay.
wrong also.
Oh, that's wrong?
Yeah.
Okay.
Right, somebody forgot to be CC'd, and 2 or 3 different versions have been circulating around. Nobody's on the same page, so got to get everybody on the same page.
Anybody want to talk about any open projects? I see the airport commission's here. You guys want to come up, talk about anything else on that, or are you good on our open project end of it so far?
I think we'll probably just
Wait till finance? Okay, fine. Any more public participation?
605.
Mr. Long?
Ken Long, 625 South Spring Street. Once again, this is government at its finest. We've gotten 24-hour notice for this legislation that you're going to present, or we're going to present, even though we've messed around with this thing for 9 months, and it was already finalized 2 weeks ago, you said yourself, and now the public doesn't get it until 24 hours ago, so we can jam it down our throats. This is not how things are done.
Well, it's not getting jammed down our throats because we're not going to do it. We're tabling it.
But
Because we had two
your
different
intent
versions
was.
of it. The intent was to bring it in front of all of us and discuss it. We're not to that point yet.
But we're the public.
I know, but we're not to that point yet.
What's fair? What's a fair amount of time for us to look over anything this whole group puts together?
Well, we have to get it in front of the public first to be able to talk about it. And we haven't been to that point yet.
Is it 24 hours? Is that fair and reasonable?
No.
Okay, so what can we expect? When you finally get this thing dusted off, and we all live long enough that there may be something for us to look at, what's a proper amount of time that we can expect? And yes, I'm putting you on the spot.
That depends on the public and us as committee members.
I was going to say, if I can clarify some procedures, I think what Mr. Long is saying is he believed it was going to be voted on tonight.
No.
It's not going to be voted on tonight.
I already know that. I understand English pretty well.
Apparently not.
Yep,
Apparently not, because we're looking at it as it's completed for the first time for discussions, so it can come back to everybody else, and the public can come and talk to them, and we can actually read through it now that all the edits are done. And then we can figure out where to go from there, then vote on it as a committee, send it to council, go through the 3 readings at council, and then have it passed. There's no jamming anything down each other's throats.
Is that going to be for the whole night?
What?
Everything that we're talking about the whole night till between now and midnight, nothing's going to get jammed down our throats?
Not in this committee.
Okay. Oh, this committee. Okay, I'm sorry. Okay, yeah, that's fine. All right. So back to my question, what's a reasonable amount of time that the public can get this, so we have time to digest it, so what comments we have, we can address?
I just thought he did it pretty eloquent already.
I didn't hear a date. I didn't hear a period.
There is
Take
no
how long it
date.
takes.
3 readings.
When it gets to council, it'll be held to 3 readings, which means it's going to be read 3 times, which means it's going to be at least 6 weeks.
I understand that
But it has to
process.
get out of committee first.
Once it gets out of committee, does the public get to see it then, or do we have to wait till that first committee, the first reading?
You got to wait till the first reading.
Okay, thank you.
Any more public participation?
Hi, Clarissa Slater, 3645 State Rep 4. Looking at the open projects, how long has Title IX or Chapter 9 been in some form on the open projects?
It's actually in the last administration for open projects, with some of the Title IX was on there, 900 was on there.
I thought I saw like 21, 22, right? Okay.
At various times, yeah, in the last
So-
administration also.
So, and there's a lot.
Mhm.
Documents on demand, you guys can look at it. So really what I'm just trying to say is like, obviously not expedient, but let's not just be rude. You guys have literally have a crap pile of open projects that have been thrown at you, so thank you for at least putting an effort.
Thank you.
Any other public participation? Seeing none, I will adjourn at 6:09.
Economic Development Committee, December 19th, 2024.
I will call Economic Development Committee to order at 6:10 PM. Members present are Vicki Dishon, Christopher Moritz, and myself, Zion Hickman, Chair. You have any public participation for economic development?
Lisa Alsept, 1323 North Sandusky Avenue. I just want to address you because I know that you're the head of the committee. Because budgeting's coming up, and I already know, they're coming after the out-of-town tax credit. They're going to have to. Take it. I don't care. I'm tired of it. But who's doing what to bring some jobs to the community? And please don't tell me the Crawford partnership. Is someone in this administration physically trying to attract jobs to our community? Yeah, I'll
Yeah.
take you, anybody.
I can answer that. A couple meetings ago, I announced to everybody that the administration and I are working on together for a list, and I'm going to go start calling people.
Thank you. I think that's the problem, honestly. As far as finances go, they may not find, I don't know if they'll find enough people here to work, but I know that I've drove out of town for almost 30 years. He drives out of town to where I work to work. What hit me the most was when they gave us our company bonus, I realized how much the city of Mansfield benefited from the bonuses that were handed to employees who left their city and went home. And I brought my money back here and spent my money here, but a lot of those people spent that money there. And to have a nice size, we've lost Swan, we've lost GE, that's where Bruce came from, and James, and we need businesses, period. People need jobs. And I don't have a problem with them giving people pay raises of $20 an hour. I'm single, I live alone. $20 an hour isn't very much money to live on. Not when you've bought groceries the way they are now. Property taxes are gonna go up. It's hard. So I appreciate you taking the initiative and trying to get some jobs here. I think we have a good administration. I do. And I don't have any problems with council that's sitting here right now. Any of you. I just don't like the other stuff. It needs to stop. And I'm on the fence about even running because I don't want to be where you people are sitting right now.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. Recently, I was given a post that really upset me. The post was by Mr. Zion Hickman. And basically, this post has something to do with the jobs that this lady was just talking about. As his post states, jobs have to come from the administration, and the administration has to find them. And he goes on and talks about the wastewater treatment plant that's only going to take 3 to 4 years of construction. According to the people up here that came from the engineering firm, it's probably going to be 2031, 32 before we even get anything done. I don't know where you're getting 3 or 4 years. Then it goes on to say about the airport project has reached phase 2, which means that all the acreage out the airport will be purchased within the next year, giving us hundreds of acres of industrial land no one else in Ohio has, if we can get a lift station put out there. It goes on to say, and this, I've never heard about this at all. This is the first time I've heard about this. It's never been mentioned in a committee. It's never been mentioned in council meetings. Second of all, further on this post, I have gotten 4 out of 6 of my grants pushed through by the administration. Where did this come from? I've never heard about these either. Never in a committee and never in a council meeting has this ever been stated. Then it goes on to say that, Chris is working on the law since the 60s, which I will agree. Jim is working on zoning. Vicki is keeping the council in check during meetings. Mr. Kevin Myers is working on the police and fire equipment that will save us millions if passed. Well, that failed. Erin has honestly been preoccupied with her daughter's festival activities and is really pushing nothing. It goes on to say Kurt got through the solar panel zoning and Carolyn has nothing under her belt. I kind of find this interesting. Then you go on to say Clarissa isn't agonizing anybody. The Crawford County Partnership has not done anything for this city whatsoever. I have not seen any facts, no figures, no nothing pertaining to the city of Bucyrus. I've asked you countless times, where are the numbers for the city of Bucyrus? Only for the city of Bucyrus. Nothing else. I don't care about anybody else. I want to know what's happening in our city and what they're doing for the money they're getting from this city out of the general fund. That's what I want to know. I have a copy of it. Trust me, it will be posted. I'll tell you that. I'm going to have this posted because this I find to be nothing but dirty politics. Are you going behind people's backs and doing stuff again? Okay? You bring nothing to this council. You report nothing to council. you do say nothing in committee meetings about this stuff, yet you post it to somebody. Thank you.
Anybody else for, oh,
May I say
yeah.
something? I apologize. Being one of the few people who were here prior to this council and administration, I know a lot has been brought up about the partnership and what they have done for the city, and though there's no particular numbers involved yet, I will say it was the work of Sarah Hurley that, and the information she brought to us to let us know that we would probably need that fourth clarifier at the new wastewater facility in order to bring more jobs to the community. If it wasn't for that, we would be stuck at a lower load level that we could have, so factories wouldn't look at Bucyrus as a likely candidate, at least not as much as a likely candidate. So because I was the only one here, even though I'm not on this committee, I just thought I would address that.
Appreciate it. Any more public participation for economic development? Seeing none, move on to the approval of minutes from December 4th, 2024, regular Economic Development Committee meeting.
I move to accept the December 4th, 2024 regular Economic Development Committee meeting minutes.
I'll second that.
The first, or a motion by Dishon, a second by Moritz. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Passes. Or aye, sorry. Now it passes. Do we have any other open projects you wish to discuss at the year's end?
No.
No, I do not either.
I will probably be getting a hold of Sarah before New Year's, try to see if we can get anything on that, what was it? It was, trying to bring the townships together.
Oh,
for,
Jed and Sita.
Yeah, for Jed and Sita. See if we've made any traction on that. If not, I will probably end up we will probably end up be moving past that if she doesn't find it that it is going to go through or happen. Have any more public participation for economic development? Seeing none, we will adjourn at 6:19 p.m.
Health and Safety Committee, December 19th, 2024.
I call the Health and Safety Committee meeting to order at 6:21 p.m. Members present are Kevin Myers, C. Aaron Sherrick, James Mee, and myself, Vicki Dishon, as chair. First on the agenda is public participation. Anybody who wishes to speak to the committee, please come to the podium and state your name and your residential address and begin your talk.
Bob Taylor, 11 Plymouth. First, I have a question. Is this the committee that would influence or make legislation that would allow me to carry my firearm in this building? Or is that strictly the administration?
That's something we can look into.
If any committee, it would be this one.
So,
But I don't
let me
think
ask you
it's
this.
necessary.
Why are we not allowed? Because I know what state law says. I mean, you can carry a weapon anywhere it's not a courthouse, anywhere it doesn't convene in court. And I'm shocked that nobody has sued you for violating the Second Amendment yet. And this is, I mean, I don't know why, after some instance we've had, I mean, we had a guy that shot at the sheriff's department, and then he drove here and was knocking on the back door. And one of the dispatchers had to answer the door, and she was unarmed when she answered it. Then you had a guy going out the front door that was attacked by dogs, I believe. And that was all, I mean, that all happened when Mr. Reeser was still mayor. And yet, all the squabbling and things we got going on up here with government, two things that government's supposed to do is protect their rights and count our money. And we are failing pretty bad at both of those. So if at some point in time down the road, we get through all this other stuff you got going on, which is important, don't get me wrong, maybe we should look at that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. I have a problem with the taxi cab stuff, and I'm going to dispel what I believe to be true. Insurance requirements are for for liability insurance. The money that's in the legislation is a joke. I don't care who's in the insurance business. I don't care who you parade up here. Insurance adjusters and all this other crap. But it's way too high. I don't care what. $1 million coverage is where the guy came up and talked and said, it's killing me. I had to take a loan out. Okay, to provide services to the residents of this city, this is the biggest joke I have ever seen in my life. Including the state, under certain I guess I'm going to be interrupted every time I talk.
I'm sorry, I have pneumonia.
I should have a mask on, ma'am. Hope you're double boosted.
So the insurance coverage in certain sections of the Ohio Administrative Code does not require taxi cabs to have commercial insurance. All they require is to have basically auto insurance coverage. Also, in certain sections of the Ohio Code, it says the insurance coverage required for this chapter shall apply to taxi cabs only during periods during which taxi cabs are performing transportation network company services. They're not. That's like Uber, Good Eats, all this other thing, because they are done by the internet. Taxi cabs, unless they are done by the internet, do not have to comply to these rules and regulations. Okay? So, and in our talk, Mr. Law Director, we even brought up the suggestion about, should we regulate Ubers and all these other people that use their telephones to transport people, goods, and services within our community to have the same liability insurance coverage that you're requiring taxi cab drivers to have. I think this needs to be sent back. I think it needs to have more public participation. I think it needs to have more scrutiny done to it, and I think the costs need to come down on this. Because basically, these people can't afford to get in there. Thank you.
Any more public participation?
Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth Street. So, I'm more asking questions here, I think. Are you guys, the regulation that you passed, is it beyond what the state of Ohio requires for taxi cab drivers? Law Director, do you know?
I don't believe so.
Do you know? Yeah, I mean, I think that's a pretty yes or no question, and I'm assuming you wrote the legislation, or am I
Passed
wrong?
several years ago.
Yeah.
Oh, it was years ago? Have you read it?
Yes.
Is it beyond what the state of Ohio requires? And if it is, why? Why would you, as a small community who's already struggling financially, why would you regulate more than what another government body's already doing? And anyone who knows me I'm all for less regulation. I think you guys ought to just get the hell out of our lives altogether. I mean, the whole system could crash, I'd be happy. But obviously that's not gonna happen yet. But I think you should look at the statute, what you got going on. If it's beyond what the state of Ohio is requiring, why are you handcuffing small business? I mean, these guys are probably driving drunk people around, I would assume, most of the time. And we're gonna try to hinder that? Doesn't make sense. Thank you.
Is $1 million in aggregate for all people who are injured per?
Kurt Fankhauser, 616 Prospect Street. I'm going to echo the last two public participants. This taxi cab ordinance that the city of Bucyrus has is excessive for especially the size of community we have. We're actually lucky to even have a taxi cab service or two operating in this size of a city. The answer is yes, it is more than what the state requirement is. And so why, if we're going to start regulating insurance for any private business, why Well, what I'm saying is, why are we picking on one certain type of business, a taxi cab? You know, we don't regulate insurance on other businesses, so why are we going after the taxi cab businesses? Do we regulate the insurance on tow truck companies in the city of Bucyrus? I don't believe that we do, so why are we going after the taxi cabs? There's 4,000 homes in this community. We don't need a taxi cab ordinance that mandates a higher level of insurance than what the state requires. I don't know, but all I know is that this Bucyrus ordinance is more than what the state requires, and it's excessive. It's big government overreach, and you just need to get rid of it. Just get rid of the whole thing.
Maybe Frizzell passage. Without all the impassion and emotion to answer the question, it's $25,000 is the minimum. So we don't need people to come up and act like experts unnecessarily. But I would just add that I surprisingly do also agree with the three before me that this is higher than what I would expect, to be fair. If I look at the regulations of Mansfield, Crestline, Gallion, Marion, Delaware, and I think Upper Sandusky, all of their city ordinances and regulations, the maximum that I saw between any of them, which I believe was Mansfield, was only 300,000 maximum. So I did just want to add that the amount that we had set, I do believe is quite a bit higher than what we would typically find as the status quo in this region. So, thank you.
Adrienne Kemery, 725 South Spring Street. I don't know what the minimum is for commercial, but I do not believe it's 25,000. That is personal lines. And Mr. White said that you don't have to have commercial. You cannot have a personal auto policy because you will be denied coverage. So if you have a personal auto policy with the 2550 and you have an accident and your insurance adjuster finds out you're working out as a taxi, it is specifically excluded. So it does not, it has to be commercial. So, thank you.
Any more public participation? Okay, seeing no one. Next on the agenda, we have, or I'll entertain a motion if the committee members have looked at the minutes for November 21st, 2024, minutes for December 2nd, 2024, and December 4th, 2024.
I'll make a motion to approve all of them collectively as presented.
I'll second that.
We have a motion by Myers, a second by Shealy. Roll call. Myers?
Yes.
Shealy?
Yes.
Me?
Yes.
And myself, Dishon? Yes. Next on the agenda is Bucyrus Codified Ordinance Chapter 711, Peddlers and Solicitors Law. I know I've looked over the draft that the law director has prepared. And the reason that we initially had our discussion on the peddlers and solicitors law was I had been contacted by some constituents who were concerned about the time that individuals were allowed to canvass, which were from 9 in the morning until 9 at night, Monday through Sunday. And the committee decided that we would change the time, being that you cannot canvass, solicit prior to 9 in the morning or after 7 p.m. at night. And then we're also having it just Monday through Friday, no weekends. And then we also placed on here that you can also not solicit or canvass on a state or national holiday or on a holiday normally recognized by the banking industry. That was the main purpose of discussing this particular chapter. The committee did ask the law director to also review the rest of the chapter to see if, while he was addressing this one particular section, if there was anything else that needed cleaned up, which he has done minor cleanups. I do have a couple questions. One of your comments, it talks about that the director of, well, let's see here. I guess it's page 1, 2, 3, and 4. It talks about the director of safety. And you state, this is the first time the service safety director is mentioned. This doesn't make much sense to me. And then another one is the service safety director isn't the one issuing the permits in the first place. The police chief is. So I think possibly what you are maybe saying is that because it's the police department that handles issuing permits and what have you, that there's no involvement of there should be no involvement of the service safety director, and that we change the service safety director to mean the police department, or?
Well, that's a conversation you're going to have with the police.
Okay.
As to whether or not they think that it should be them or the service safety director.
All right.
However, there is conflict. I'm assuming that it was edited in years past, and because that is the first time that the service safety director shows up in that legislation.
Well, in this legislation, I was looking at it, all the dates are June 4th, 1996. So I'm wondering if it was a whole new piece that was done in 1996. I mean, every section, that's the, well now, excuse me, I stand corrected. In 97, they changed the penalty clause. So what you're suggesting is then, someone from the committee check with the police department. Your thoughts, however, is that, well, I guess you're wanting, we'll check the police department asking if they feel this is something they should be doing, or if this is something the service safety director should be handling. All right.
And you should probably include the service safety director in that conversation as well.
Okay. We can do that. And those were the only comments that I had. Other than that, like I say, the tweaks were, well, you did make a comment on applicant to file a bond. And your comment was, does anyone enforce this? And this is where every applicant for a permit under this chapter shall file a surety bond to the city in the amount of $10,000.
Correct. My question is that being followed?
Okay. Again, check with the service safety director or the police department. Okay, those were the questions I had. Does anybody else on the committee have any questions to the?
Not until we get those answers.
Is the committee themselves fine with the purpose of, again, talking about peddlers and solicitors, the change where we did the time, 9 to 7, Monday through Friday, and not on state or national holidays? Okay. Then we'll put this on hold for now, if the committee's fine with that. And is the committee okay if I check with the police and the service safety director, or does someone else want to do that, or? Okay. Okay, I can do that. Taxi cab licensing is next on the agenda. We will put that on hold. Mr. Barger was unable to come tonight. He did send an email to me and ask if I would read that. I think what I will do is hold his email. I did some checking with the police department today because Mr. Barger had mentioned his concern that he believes there's another taxi cab service in town that is not following the insurance requirements. And the individual that I needed to speak with in the police department today was unavailable. And he will, I'm planning on talking with him on Monday. So we'll just put this matter on hold and then we'll discuss it at our next committee meeting. Jim?
So I checked with State Farm, Bo at State Farm here in Bucyrus.
Okay.
And they refused to cover any taxi cabs whatsoever for no amount of money. I also checked with Brad and he represents auto owners, and they require $1 million. Just the business themselves, if they're going to cover a taxi cab, it'd be $1 million.
Which is the figure that we have.
Which is the figure that we have.
And you said that was auto owners?
Auto owners, and that was Brad. He owns that business, and Bo is the manager of State Farm here in Bucyrus.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Any other discussion on Mr. Gilbert?
Sure. Maybe everybody would like an attorney's perspective from why $1 million is a good idea. So what we're actually quarreling about here is, I believe, Ohio Revised Code 3942.02. It's a little confusing. However, I do believe that the requirement is that taxi cabs the way I read it, and the way it's commonly read, is that it is $1 million. And they require $1 million in the industry because there's really not that much left over to compensate people. I mean, in Ohio, you have a $250,000 cap on non-compensatory damages. So those are things that are like emotional distress, right? Actual compensatory damages are economic losses, medical bills, the cost of the car replacement, those kinds of things. You're transporting people. The van has the capacity to carry, what, 3 people?
A van?
Yeah, a van.
5 to 6 extra other than the driver.
Well,
Actually,
the driver would be workers' comp. But
so you have
even if
7 or 8 people who fit in a
I was going to
small
say,
van.
even if you just have 3 people in there and they have a horrible car accident, like my dad, when he was delivering pizzas, some kid was driving way too fast and hit him. His car actually ended up in Randy's Tire parking lot. The car caught on fire. He had a crushed sternum, all that stuff. Insurance, the guy's insurance took care of that, but there was still a lot left over, and that was even back in the day. They have to share. It's an aggregate $1 million policy. If you've got, typically, depending, but if you've got 3 people in there and they all have damages, there's a limited pot that the insurance will pay for. Otherwise, you have to go through the pockets of the business. And then if the business is set up as an LLC and it's not an alter ego, well, that's it. It's only the assets within that LLC. You can only take assets that are in that LLC. There's just not much left after the insurance policy is eaten up. That $1 million goes real quick in personal injury suits.
And at the $1 million level, that's a combined single limit, so your property damage comes out of that. Whereas in an auto policy, if it's, like this, they're saying the state minimum of $25,000 per person, $50,000 per accident, $25,000 property damage, you've got 3 separate dollar amounts that go to 3 separate things. In the commercial policy on $1 million, it's a combined single limit. So not only is the liability towards the people that are injured and so forth, but also the property damage is in that dollar, in that pot of money as well.
Now, I will clarify, because I got some legal scholars out there that are probably going to mention that juries award tens of millions of dollars on a regular basis. Well, that's true, but the jury isn't allowed to know whether someone has insurance or not, let alone whether or not there's a limit to that insurance. They're allowed to award whatever they think is fair. And then through a process called remitter, after the jury is discharged, everything gets reduced down, if it's over the cap, to the maximum. So if somebody says, well, your non-economic losses are $10 million, and the jury awards that, It doesn't matter, they're just gonna drop it down to $250,000 because that's the cap in Ohio. So that's how that works.
Can I ask a question up there?
Sure?
Let me tell you who I am again, where I live.
Please.
Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth Street. Now, I can't dispute what you said with how the law is written and the hypothetical situations you threw out there. My question is this. The state already has regulation in place, correct, with limits? We're talking about insurance though, right? And what you're saying is the city of Bucyrus is creating a regulation that's going to keep the citizens safe that are getting a taxi, correct? Is that what you're telling us? I mean, that's kind of what I took it as.
Did you ask if it's the people getting in the taxi?
Yeah, no, the drivers, the taxi cab has insurance, and your regulation is to keep the occupants safe. Is that the angle you're coming from?
No, it's not safe. It only kicks in if they're injured.
Correct. So what business is it of local government? The state's already got it covered.
Now, that's not a question for me. That's a question for the committee.
Okay, well, I'm talking all of you. I don't understand. I don't understand.
That is a really good question.
At what point the principle of this government, what gives you the right to do that? And then we're talking about small government, something that's lost in America. And even on the lowest level of government, here we have a struggling city financially. You're looking at every little possible way you can to nickel and dime some small businesses. It doesn't make sense. And you can run around with the legal limbo, what all that, that doesn't matter. Sure, the hypothetical situation you just ran through, everybody understands that accidents happen, people get hurt, people get sued. But the state of Ohio already has a regulation in place. And somehow, local government that's struggling thinks it's a good idea to make it more expensive for somebody. There's no common sense in that, man.
Okay, so again, if it's okay with the committee, we're going to put the taxi cab licensing insurance requirement on hold. Next on our agenda, we have it says here, appointment of Floyd Farmer, Steve Pfeiffer, and Ron Boers to the Property Maintenance Appeals Board. And I think basically what we're looking at here is reappointing Mr. Floyd Farmer, Mr. Ron Boers, and Mr. Steve Pfeiffer to each to a 4-year term to the Property Maintenance Appeals Board. Their term will begin January 1, 2025, and will end December 31, 2028. Now, can I assume, because this came from your report, I do believe, Mr. Goldberg, was it not, or were you?
No, it was my report.
Okay, that these individuals have been contacted and they are willing to?
Not to my knowledge.
Oh, okay.
I had contacted Alyssa to contact them and see how they felt about it. Alyssa's the secretary of the Property Maintenance Appeals Board, so I haven't heard back from her as to if they're interested.
If that's the case, I'd like to table this until we hear back from those people.
Okay, then we're going to table this since there's been no response heard back as to whether these 3 individuals wish to, either all 3 or 1 or 2, wish to be reappointed. So we'll place that on hold, which then that'll make that necessary when we do prepare legislation to make it retroactive. I would assume.
Would have had to have been anyway at this point. Well.
We're going to, if we had done this, it would have been an emergency. Of course, I don't know, that wasn't even on our agenda for tonight for special counsel. So anyhow, we'll put this on hold as well. Are there any open projects that anybody on the committee wishes to discuss? Just a reminder that on the food trucks, At our November 21st committee meeting, it was left that the law director, service safety director, and the mayor would get together, go over the draft edits done by the law director, and then get back with us. So the committee's just waiting for that. Same thing with marijuana dispensaries at the November 21st meeting. We had requested that the law director prepare separate legislation drafts for each of the chapters 704 and 705. And just for information purposes, we're waiting for that. I mean, totally understand what all you have on your plate. Not a problem, but again, I'm just pointing out for information. Feral cats, or basically animals and fowls. Back on November 21st, the committee asked Mr. Goldberg to go over Police Chief Ossenheimer's concerns and revised the draft ordinance with those concerns. And then also I had emailed to you the Ohio Revised Code Section 505.16 that needed to be added into that. So that's it for open projects. I mean, an update of what we're waiting on. So again, nobody else had anything else on open projects to talk about? Or any open project you wish to discuss? If not, we'll go to public participation again.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. So when are we going to sit down and actually discuss the failed levy for the police and fire equipment? When are we actually going to do this? Are we going to keep on tabling it and tabling it and tabling it?
That's not this committee.
Well, I thought it was under health and safety.
It's finance.
It's finance.
Oh, okay. Sorry. I'll come back up. Thank you.
Any other public participation?
Just a question. How much is it to refile for new legislation? Do we have a figure for that? Like any time you guys pass legislation, like a resolution or an ordinance, how much is it? So if it's already matching the state, let's presuming, so we're going to nickel and dime us by spending $200 to remove it? Or is that what is suggested? Okay, I'm just wondering, like that's the question that's been presumed, but if it's the same, like why don't you just keep it there? It's not doing anything? That's my own question.
Kurt Fankhauser, 616 Prospect. Is this the right committee for the marijuana?
I'm sorry, I didn't.
Marijuana
Yes.
stuff?
Yes.
So I had received a phone call, I believe it was last week, from a company out of Texas that was inquiring about, they were a consulting company gathering data for clients of theirs that were looking to invest in the marijuana dispensary type businesses. And he was asking me questions like, has your town banned the dispensaries? Are you guys doing anything with dispensaries? And I said, well, it's kind of nothing's been done yet, but I got it sounded to me like he was trying to find towns that were favorable to those type of businesses coming in, and they were going to present that data to their list of potential clients or whatever. So I know this has been in committee for a while, but I feel like if this committee keeps dragging its feet on it, we may possibly end up on a list somewhere that says this town doesn't really seem favorable to the marijuana. And I'm not saying I'm for the marijuana or against the marijuana stuff, but there has been people come up in the past that seem very passionate about this issue and that they wanted that type of business to come into Bucyrus. So,
May I ask you a question, Mr. Fankhauser?
Yeah.
Did you say this was an email that you received?
no, it was
Oh.
just a phone call. It was like a cold phone call from this Texas consulting company And what I told him was, there's nothing in our zoning prohibiting it right now, and they're currently talking about it. And I gave him Mike Keefe's number.
Okay.
So, but I think at this point,
How long ago was this phone
this
conversation?
was like last week.
Last week, okay.
And so, I know it's like $250 to pass a piece of legislation. Excuse
I'm
me.
sorry, guys, it's getting really loud, this room echoes, and I don't care if you like what somebody's talking about or don't like it, they still have the floor. Sorry.
If it costs $250 to pass a piece of legislation, and you guys think you're leaning towards allowing the zoning, maybe it would be in the city's best interest to pass a resolution stating, and all it's going to state is, yes, we are working towards something that allows these type of businesses. That would send a message to the consulting firms, which could then relay that to their clients that, hey, this is a community that may be favorable to allowing that type of business to come in. Otherwise, I think they're going to start moving on to other towns and stuff.
Okay. Now, in response to your comment, $250, you're talking the advertising?
Yeah, just
Okay.
pass a resolution that says, this is so-and-so town. We recognize that these type of businesses are now allowed in Ohio, and, we, as a city council, we want to attract new businesses, and this type of business is something we want, and that's if that's what you want. But,
And my comment was just that the advertising costs for the caption of legislation, that is based on the number of words. I've already had an email to the Telegraph Forum when I was looking to see what a particular piece would cost to have published, and it was like, I think maybe 7 or 8 lines, and that was going to be like $62. So I just don't want us to throw around the figure $250 because you can't just say that. It's based on the number of words, so I would just like that clarified, so.
okay. Regardless of what it actually is, if it's up to $250, that $250 could potentially land you a business that comes into this community that may invest millions.
Okay. Thank you. Any other public participation? Seeing no one, oh, I'm sorry, Jim.
Do we have any draft legislation?
On the marijuana dispensaries?
On the marijuana
Well, just as I gave my earlier updates on our open projects, on November 21st, the committee asked Mr. Gobrick to prepare drafts for Chapter 704 and 705. Mr. Gobrick had prepared the traditional, which the committee all has had, and it was my understanding that the committee was fine, and we were now looking for him to put this in legislation form. So,
So can we put that on your list?
Put it on my list.
Awesome, it's there. You want a motion?
Sure.
Like to make a motion?
I thought we already did.
yeah, we already did that on November 21st.
But if he wants it
I
again,
was gonna say,
hey.
it's not on my list, so add it back on my list.
Now,
Should be on your list.
it's not on your list?
I keep a list.
Well, I'm telling
I
you, I
checked
keep
off
a
my
list too.
to-dos.
And I've got my notes on 11/21. You were asked to prepare.
All right, then it's already on my list. I will do it.
Thank you. All right. We will adjourn the Health and Safety Committee meeting at 6:57 PM.
Buildings Committee, December 19th, 2024.
I'm calling Public Lands and Buildings to order at 6:59 PM. Members present are Zion Hickman, Christopher Moritz, and myself, C. Aaron Sherrick, Chair. Do we have any public participation for Public Lands and Buildings?
Kurt Fankhauser, 616 Prospect. It was referred to put sale of city properties on the agenda here, and the reason for that, I believe, was because one, the money that we could get from selling city properties could potentially be used for our share of what we need for the airport commission grant. There's also, I believe, is the roof on City Hall need replaced? That needs replaced. Is there anything else you know of off the top of your head?
That's pretty good.
Do you got an idea on what the City Hall roof cost might be?
Kurt, just a second. Guys, can you quiet down, because that is really echoing up here, so I know that the mics are picking it up. Thank you.
It's like 430,000-ish.
Just for the roof on City Hall? Okay, so the airport grant share was 300,000, but we had like 50 from a private business that said they was gonna donate it, and that could be matched. So we could potentially get 100,000 of that 300,000, but we'd still have a 200,000 we gotta come up with there. The City Hall roof's 400,000, that's like 600,000+. So the potential city properties we might be looking at are the 2 parking lots, North End Fire Station. It's also been mentioned about possibility of the Pines Reservoir. With the numbers that between this roof and the airport thing, I think you're gonna have to put all of those up. I don't think you're gonna be able to get by with just, a couple of them. I think you're gonna have to put everything up. Now, what you could do is, you could stage it so that when the bids are open, certain ones are open first, so that potentially, if we get more than we thought we were gonna get off of certain ones, we may not have to tap into some of the other properties to sell. So like, for example, the Pines Reservoir could be the last one opened up, but we might not have to tap into that if the other so many come in with enough money. So that was just a suggestion I had for the committee. The other thing I'd heard, Picking Park, I've heard there is a private business interested in buying that directly adjacent to Picking Park, and there's actually drawn up building plans already for the expansion of the Copper Kettle. So you might want to throw that in there. Those plans have actually been in the mayor's office. I've seen them. So, I think there's like 5 properties there. There may be some more, like where the old water tower used to be and stuff like that. But at this point, with the city's revenues, I think you're just going to have to do it all of it. Might not have to sell all of it. You can still reject the bids once they come in, but just get the process rolling. Thank you.
Thank you, Kurt.
Ray Thitoff, 210 Ethel Street, Chairman, Bucyrus Trails Committee. You all created the Trail Committee because of the pines, to keep the pines, to open it up so citizens of Bucyrus could go out, enjoy the outdoors, walk the trails. And you're sitting up here talking about selling it. Not one time have I ever been told, or has anyone on the Trails Committee been told, I'm half afraid to go out there and work on the trails because there's talk of selling it. What the hell's going on?
Actually,
Kurt suggests that we sell it and you all jump on board. Is that it?
No. Kurt suggested it.
Kurt
All we're
suggested.
doing is hearing his words, and that's it. I do not back selling the pines. I never have.
So almighty Kurt suggests it, and
That does not mean it's going out for sale. It means that he just suggested.
I hope you all have enough sense to not listen to almighty Kurt. Thank you.
Okay, do we have any more public participation? All right, next on the agenda is the approval of minutes for the December 4th, 2024 regular Public Lands and Buildings Committee meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve.
We have a motion from Mr. Hickman
I'll second that.
with a second from Mr. Moritz. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, so the motion passes. Now, next is the sale of public lands and city property. Do we have a list of all the properties that we have that we were looking at?
We do have a list.
Because I was going to say, there was a pretty extensive list. Do we still have the ones on like Woodlawn and, okay, that's what I thought. I know.
I can type that up and send it out there.
I know that I would really like a list. I know everybody else was asking for one. I know that there was interest in the one parking lot down by Wendy's. I know a lot of people are very happy with the use of the other parking lot because that we finally have a place to put those. But yeah, I know the North End Fire Station and all those other properties that are laying around on Woodlawn and things, people really wanted to know what all was out there still yet. So.
Will that list be posted?
Hopefully, as soon as they get it to us.
I'll do that tomorrow.
Thank you so much. All right, and if you guys know of any other properties that may not have been looked at before, that we have that are just, you know, because I definitely don't want to tap into our parks. I mean, Picking Park is not, nothing's paid for by the city, it's taken care of by the foundation. I don't even know if that, does that belong to us?
May I speak?
Yes, please.
To clarify about the Picking Park, it's just a rendition that has surfaced by individuals with their intentions that they would like to expand picking copper kettle. And I inquired about it, I heard about it. I had our engineering department get a hold of Richland County to try to find out what's going on. And the architect that is representing these individuals now has stated that he came up with a rendition of what they would like to do, but the next order of business would be for that property would have to come to Public Lands and Buildings. They're the people that would like to do it, they have to let themselves be known, and they actually have to come to council, and that would be your decision, what you would like to do with that Kiwanis Park. So there's nothing out there that's finalized or even, there's no plans even, so just a color rendition of some wishes.
Thank you.
When we get that list from the Service Safety Director, do you think it'd be proper to have an emergency Public Lands and Buildings meeting? Just to have certain ones just out of the way for the airport and terminal building? Because I know that they're on a deadline too.
Right, they're on a deadline, but we already okayed a lot of it. Come on up, Mr. Myers.
Kevin Myers, 421 West Oakwood. To Zion's point, maybe consider, I know there's a longer list coming, but for getting the airport project moving along and getting some money for the roof, the ones that were already just talked about, which would have been the 2 parking lots and the fire station, we already had dollar amounts and things. I think you could just go back and put those 2 up immediately, let them get the other list. I don't think you need to have a special meeting. You could do that then once you have the next meeting after you get that.
Is it actually 3 or is there more parcels there? Because they started.
Where
for the parking lots. There was the 2 parking lots.
There were they're 2 separate parcels.
But it's
the one
multiple.
had multiple pieces, but it was included as one.
Okay.
So
All
you
right.
had 3 separate sales.
Yeah.
You had the one that the dumpsters are on. You had the one that people think's an alley, and then you had the building.
Okay. Thank you, sir. And to Mr. Meyer's point, it would probably be beneficial if we just brought those 3 different ones back out immediately. Would you guys want to stick with the same dollar amount? Did all that look good before?
Yeah, I thought the dollar amount was fine. It was just that we decided to table it for now.
Right.
I'm fine with that, yeah.
Okay, so we're probably going to need a motion?
I make a motion to bring those 3 back up for sale.
immediately as emergency?
Immediately as emergency, thank you.
I'll second that.
Okay, so we have a motion from Mr. Moritz and a second from Mr. Hickman. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No, because we all just, sorry, that passed. All right, so if you could, sir, please help bring those three back up. The legislation had been written previously.
Okay.
It's just going to end up with new numbers, I guess, probably, so.
Sure.
All right, thank you. Huh?
I still have the copies.
So can you make sure to get those to him? Because I can't remember if that was right in the beginning of his, that it was brought up or dropped.
Oh, we'd have to change the number since we still have
Yeah,
it? or-
but it's all the same information, so. All right. Do we have anything for open projects to speak about tonight?
Pretty much just did.
Nope, you pretty much just covered what I wanted to go over, so.
All right, do we have any more public participation?
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. I'm appalled at you people putting up the North End Fire Station again. Okay, the fire department needs storage space, okay? You can't put some of that equipment in places that they don't have easy access to. Mr. Hickman pointed that out when he had the conversation with the fire chief and stated that, okay? They need this storage, okay? I personally believe, and what I believe to be true, that somebody's going to benefit from the sale of the North End Fire Station. And I think that if you're going to start putting up sale of public lands, then I think you need to put that information on documents on demand so the public knows what properties are available to sell, so they can look at this.
Mr. White, it was already told that the list is going to be put up.
Okay.
You heard
But-
that about 5 minutes ago.
But the thing is, you guys are putting it back up for sale again. This is ridiculous. Mr. Hickman voted against it the last time. Now he's agreeing to sell it again.
I can clarify that here in a minute.
Well, that's fine. I'll let you clarify it now so I don't have to sit back down so I can,
Just please hurry up, sir.
well, isn't this open discussion? Yes, it is.
I asked you to
Follow the
speak.
rules. I would like to hear
Are you
from-
done, sir?
I would like to hear from Mr.
I
Hickman.
asked you to finish speaking. You
Okay.
have something.
So if you're going to put all these parcels up for sale, I think that, people are going backtracking on what they're saying all the time. And I think that this is atrocity to the city and to the fire department for selling something that they need, okay? You guys have, this council is probably going down as the worst council ever in the history of the city of Bucyrus.
Guys, you may not like what he's saying or you may agree with it, but either way, he has the right to be talking right now. Thank you.
Sorry.
To continue on, if you're going to sell I think you need to look at other properties first before you go after the North End Fire Station first. Okay? Thank you.
Madam Chair, I would like to point out that we do have Chief Schwimley in the audience.
We do, and right now we have Ms. Dishon.
You beat me to it.
Vicki Dishon, 1108 Hillcrest Drive, Bucyrus. With permission from Fire Chief Schwemley, I just asked him, do you need the North End Fire Station building for storage? He said no, and that I could come up and state what his answer was. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I may, Mr. Chair, to clarify to Greg's point, when I did say that it should be kept, at the time it was perceived that because we didn't buy the Y building, or we didn't go through with buying the Y building, that it was necessary for them to keep it. I met with the administration, I think a week or a week and a half ago at this point, and they said that that building has been cleared out except for maybe one trailer. Was it the hazmat trailer?
The small decon trailer is still in there.
Yeah.
Still working on getting that out of
Yeah, so everything in that building has been cleared out. It's ready to go. And to Mrs. Dishon's point, if the fire chief says they don't need it at this point, it's not needed. So.
Thank Mr. Fankhauser, did you?
Do I gotta restate my address? I already stated it once. 616 Prospect, Kurt Fankhauser. I forgot to mention another property, Crowder Road. There's, I believe, 7 acres out there that the city owns. It's absolutely doing nothing. The city actually goes out there and mows the grass. I don't think they mow the whole thing, but maybe part of it. So you probably want to throw that one in too, because you know, we've done nothing with it for like however long we've had it. So, and back to the Pines, I actually think that the Pines could be potentially developed by a developer and sold for lots for housing. And the unique situation with that is we have sewer and water very close to the Pines right now. So for a developer to come in, what you could do is you put a deed restriction on when you sell it that says if it ever becomes contiguous to the city limits, it automatically would get annexed in. And then, you know, we could have a lot more housing out there that could potentially end up being in the city limits if. So, I mean, I haven't been to the Pines. I know Mr. Thitoff has some trails out there and stuff, but at this point, I think what we need is housing desperately in this area. So.
Guys, please finish, sir.
Okay, I'm going to finish right now because it's obvious I can't speak without certain people interrupting me back here.
Right that off 210 Ethel Street. I think we should take the soccer fields and build houses. Sell the soccer fields down on Lane Street and put some housing in. Thank you.
Kevin Myers, 421 West Oakwood. Point out on the Crowder Road property, the purpose of talking about selling all this property is to raise some money to take care of other buildings and such. There's a deed restriction on that property that for the dollar amount that it was worth when it was donated to us, and I can't recall what the number is, but I think it's like $7,000 or something total. We can't sell it for any more than that. If we do, then that difference has to be given back to the Shriners. So we can't profit off of that.
Thank you, sir.
Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth. I just wanted to say, since we're talking about trails, whoever developed the trail, the new trail by the park, did a great job. That's an awesome addition to the community. I run on that a few times, so.
Thank you. All right. Do we have any more public participation? Seeing none, I'm going to adjourn at 7:17 p.m.
Platting Committee, December 19th, 2024.
Platting Committee will come to order at 7:20. And members are Aaron Sherrick, Vicki Dishon, James B. Chair. Any public participation? No public participation for plating? I'm blessed. Approval of the minutes for December 4th, 2024, regular Platting Committee meeting.
Mr. Me, I would like to make a motion for the approval of the minutes from the December 4th, 2024 regular Platting Committee meeting.
Thank you, Aaron. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Vicki seconds the motion. Roll call. Aaron?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
And I am a yes. Pass. So now we got BCO 1189.03, general resurfacing, went to Planning Commission. And they recommended changes. And that comes under 1189.03, general resurfacing. And what?
Yeah, it's C3.
Right. I was getting there. C3. And what it originally read, all single family dwelling units shall have a minimum of a dustless stone parking area with a concrete apron surrounding said parking lot. So I seen it, I didn't really realize what it meant, but if you have a parking lot with 100 cars in it, it means that you have to have an apron around the whole parking lot of 100 cars to put your stones in, which doesn't make sense. So their recommendation was all single-family dwelling units shall have a minimum, a dustless stone parking area with concrete apron approach, providing access to said parkings pursuant to the standard details for drive aprons on file with the Engineering and Zoning Office. That was our change that the Planning Commission made. Now, do I have a motion to accept the changes from the Planning Commission?
I make a motion to accept the changes from the planning commission.
Thank you.
I second that motion.
Second from Vicki. Roll call vote. Aaron?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
And I am a yes. All right.
Do we need to do anything else with that, or should we make a motion to send it to full council?
Legal question, do I do these individually to send them to full council because there's 4 pieces of legislation? Yes, ma'am.
But we're not going to go to council because we have to do a public hearing.
Public hearing,
Yep.
I'm sorry.
No, I'm sorry.
You're
I was
throwing me
jumping
off,
ahead,
Aaron.
too.
Okay. I need a motion to set a public hearing.
So moved.
Aaron
Made a motion.
made a motion. Vicki?
Well, do we know what date? I
Not
mean,
yet.
Yeah, I have a proposed date if you.
Okay, because I think
Just
you
give me
want to
one
say what the date.
Yeah, Aaron messed me up, so.
So the proposed date that I think that I can get a notice out the soonest and be at 30 days would be February 12th would be when we could hold it.
I'm free.
That's a Wednesday.
February 12th.
Mhm.
So there's 4 pieces of legislation here. Do you want to have them all 4 that need the public hearing? Can we do all those at once?
Mhm. That's what I had suggested at our last,
Okay.
that we do all 4 at one public hearing.
We have BCO 1189.03, general resurfacing, BCO 1193.01, solar panels, amending ORC to include ponds, and 316 and 320 woodlawn. Can I have a motion to put those into public hearing? What?
I have a concern with the solar panels.
So should we go over them all first and then, but we'll keep that date?
Yeah, have to. Okay, solar panels.
The concern that I have with the solar panels is that the draft legislation that's on documents on demand, if you'll remember back on December the 4th, we discussed amendments to be made to the draft that we had then. And those amendments were made that same night. But those amendments are not reflected in the draft that is on documents on demand, in our council or in our committee packet. So I just want to make sure that number 1, what was given to the Planning Commission to look at was the proper draft, which I will say that the amendments that needed to be done do not change the effect of the ordinance, but they need to be in there. I mean, it's just
That was the
a
cleanup.
proper explanation, yes.
We have the proper one, correct?
Well, I don't know if you do.
As well as any of the other. It was in the packet online, right?
And that's what I'm saying, that's not the proper one.
Does the one online give the firefighters, or the fire department final
Yes.
inspection? Because it's the
Yes.
right one, right?
Okay,
It says on, on the last page, it says the following shall be subject to the final inspection by the fire department or their agents prior to approval.
and that's correct. However, at the December 4th committee meeting, I brought up that under section 1, we needed to insert the verbiage, section 1193.01 entitled solar panels under. That verbiage was not included. There was also the additional word of to, T-O, to be included. Also, there were to be added the initials of the council clerk, the president of council, and the mayor. Those changes were done that night, but they're not reflected on this piece that's in our packet.
Their middle initials.
Do you have your laptop?
It's downstairs in my office. But if you want to take a recess, we can get that fixed.
Is there objection to a recess?
Does it have to go back to the planning commission with those small?
No.
Okay. Yes, I have no problem with the recess.
Vicki, you have a problem with the recess?
No, I don't. It's just, we want to make sure because these, at least in the past, I don't know what's being done now, but when I was working for the law director, when you had a public hearing, these draft legislations were posted on the window of the zoning department so that the public could come up and see what pieces.
Bonnie, we're taking a break.
At what time?
7:28.
7:28.
48.
Thank you.
We're adjourning the meeting. Okay, we got the right copies.
You need the time. 7:34.
7:34. Whatever Aaron wants.
I would just like to let everyone know while I was down in my office, I kicked on the coffee pot, so when we're still here at 1 o'clock, we'll have coffee.
Sweet. All right, we need to set a date for public hearing for BCO 1189.03, general resurfacing, BCO 1193.01, solar panels, and amending ORC to include ponds, and 316 and 320 Woodlawn. And we'd like that at February 12th. How's that date work out for you, Miranda? About what time?
Let's do 6 o'clock.
6? Oh, that's
Sounds like a
perfect.
great time.
6 p.m. February 12th, 6 p.m. Do we need a vote on that?
Yes.
So did we need it as a motion?
Technically.
Okay, then I'll make a motion for public hearing on February 12th at 6 PM for BCO 1189.03, BCO 1193.01, amending the codified ordinances to include ponds and 316 to 320 Woodlawn.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
I second that motion.
Thank you. All those in favor, roll call vote. Aaron?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Just to let everybody know, I've been working on 1189.03 general resurfacing for 11 months. I've already thrown the trash. All right. Where are we at? Hey, we got appointment to Floyd Farmer to the BZA and BBSA. Anybody got any comments on that or discussions? Yes?
I did hear from Floyd Farmer on this one. He had contacted Landon Hill and expressed his interest in doing another term for the BZA and BBSA.
Awesome.
That's great.
Okay, so can I have a motion to appoint Floyd Farmer to the BZA and BBSA for a how many year term?
Yeah.
4.
4-year term?
And that begins and ends
It would be, at this point, retroactively the January 1st, 2025 and December 31st, 2029.
Hey, can I make a motion?
Now,
28.
Yeah, 28.
Oh, sorry.
28.
Can I make a motion to appoint Floyd Farmer to the BZA and BBSA for a 4-year term, retroactively beginning January 1st of 2025 and ending on December 31st, 2028?
For a 2-year term.
4 years.
4 years.
But that still
4-year
only
term.
sounds like 3.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Roll call vote. Aaron?
Yes.
Vicki?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Open projects. Anybody want to look at anything?
Sidewalks.
What do you got? 'Cause I got it too. Come on.
The draft, Mr. Goldberg, that you prepared, which I'm not sure if Aaron has seen that. I know I forwarded it to Jim.
Yes.
Do you have yours in front of you, Jim?
Yes.
That you could pass to Aaron, please? I still think, and I think we were a little confusing on how we addressed it, so I can understand why you did hear what you did. But in number A, or letter A, where it says, any member of the City of Bucyrus administration, well, I think basically in A, we want it to be understood that any member of the public can bring their concern where they feel a sidewalk needs to be repaired or constructed. But that concern should be brought to the administration. And in here, we talk about bring to the attention of City Council. So basically, A
I got it here.
would say that the administration can bring to council their concern or their list of sidewalks that they feel needs to be repaired or constructed. The public can bring their concerns to the administration. However, before the administration brings their concerns and/or the public's concerns of sidewalks, there needs to be this investigation done to make sure.
Okay, so I see what you're saying, and we can't do that.
We can't, okay?
The public has to be able to come to city council and tell them that the sidewalk is jacked up and they need it to be fixed.
Okay.
The home rule thing lets us tweak it, lets us have somebody other than the clerk be the one who sends out the notice and all that fun stuff. And we can even have the administration do their investigation and have all the data and stuff ready to go before they bring it here.
That's what she just said.
That's already in there. She wants the public to be able to go to the administration. The public has to be able to come to council.
So how does it get investigated prior to?
If they're out and doing things and a worker says, hey, this sidewalk's jacked up, that's just employees reporting stuff to their boss.
So then, if the public came to a council meeting and said, I have a concern, this sidewalk needs to be repaired, then we refer that then to the administration for them
Correct.
to have an investigation done.
Correct, and it's
But they
circular
need to
because
come
then.
here, not directly to them.
Right, they need to come here. Now, the administration can find them on their own
Right.
while they're out and about doing stuff.
Great, okay.
And when they do come here,
I think the public can come to us also.
Yes, it should work both ways.
It should go both ways, right?
Wait.
Okay.
I'm okay with that.
But I thought you just said that, but as long as they're allowed to come to us.
correct. They have to be able to come to council.
Okay,
We can't tell them that they can't come to council.
understand, okay, but if they choose to go to the administration directly, that's okay. We're
That's
not-
okay too.
All right, well then, with
So
that
would
being
we just put
said,
that wording at the bottom of that? Like,
I don't think there's any need to change it.
no, in my, well, let's see.
The present ordinance that's been on the books for many, many years, the public always came to council in the past.
Okay, then, but look under A. I'm wondering about that last sentence that says, upon receipt of information, this is, when the administration or the member of the public brings to the attention of council existing sidewalks that need to be repaired. It says, upon receipt of information, the city council may refer the matter to the appropriate committee. Well, under B, we say prior to the City of Bucyrus administration bringing a sidewalk that is in need of being repaired, to the attention of council, the administration shall first have caused an investigation into said sidewalk and make the findings known to council with the referral of said sidewalk to the, couldn't we add to the appropriate committee in line, or in B, and strike out upon receipt of the information in A? Because we're not going to refer it to committee until the administration has come to council and said, here is our list of streets that we feel need to be repaired or constructed. Then at that time, that list then is referred to the proper committee, and then the committee decides if, we're going to do a resolution, and we request a resolution, and then council votes on, yes, we agree these streets need to be repaired, and then the council clerk sends her notice to the property owners or what have you and say, hey, this needs to be repaired, you have so many days, whatever. I'm rattling. Am I going too fast?
I have a question. They can still just call the mayor's office, right?
Yes.
I mean, because some people are just too intimidated.
Yeah, that's still an option, but we can't say that they can't come to council.
Yeah.
Yeah. As for what Vicki's saying, yeah, I think we can make that work.
That's just my suggestion. If you feel what you have is fine and the rest of the committee, I'm fine. I'm just,
Well, I suppose it has to go to a vote then.
Aaron, how do you feel about it?
I definitely think that the wording is off.
Do you think the wording is off?
Yeah, like the upon receipt of information, the city council may refer, just the city council may refer, it doesn't need to say upon the receipt of information.
All right.
But for A then, if that's worded the way it is at the top, the city council may refer the matter to the appropriate committee or space for investigation or person for investigation, because before it goes to committee, it should definitely be checked out. Because we had already had that conversation that it'd be necessary, which was part of the thing that I didn't see in there.
Mr. Goldberg, do you understand what they're saying?
I do understand what they're saying.
Okay, could you work on that for us?
Sure can.
That'd be awesome.
It's on the list.
It's a long.
thank you.
Okay. Papers. That was under open projects, so any more open projects you guys want to discuss? Vicki?
No.
Okay, we're good. Public participation. Seeing none, meeting adjourned at 7:45.
Finance Committee, December 19th, 2024.
Call the Finance Committee meeting to order at 7:51 PM. Members present are James Me, Christopher Moritz, Vicki Dishon, and Kevin Myers, Chair. First, public participation.
Hello. Hello? Well, I'll try anyway. Yeah, David Shealy, 6016 Annapolis DeKalb Road, Tyrone, Ohio. Airport Commission, President of the Airport Commission. Regarding the airport terminal.
One moment, please. And for anybody else coming up, please don't grab the microphone. It keeps popping it out of its socket. My bad. All right, you can continue. I'm sorry.
Okay, all right. Okay, regarding the airport terminal, as has been outlined, we're trying to get the Bucyrus's portion of the fund as low as possible, so we're trying to raise some money outside and contributions. Kevin went over the other night the fact that we have someone that's willing to put up matching of $50,000. To move forward with that, we do need to get the 501c3, I believe, set up for that. And I think Mr. Gobeck, I think you mentioned that you might be able to help with that, or?
Yes, I can.
Okay, well, I could help with it too if you'd like. I do have some experience with that, and really that's all I'm suggesting in that. I just want to make sure that the time frame will go fairly quick, so I just wanted to make sure that we could do that. So I've got a card. Could I leave that somewhere?
Excellent.
All right.
Hey, teamwork.
There you go. That's all I'm looking for. All right, thank you.
Kurt Fankhauser, 616 Prospect Street. I'm here tonight to talk about the 2025 proposed budget. The one job that a city council has above everything else is to ensure the funding for what it needs for its budget is there. We are currently December 19th. This is the first meeting that the Finance Committee has ever had regarding the 2025 budget. It's been known since January the city is going to be running out of money. Okay, this proposed budget, and I have a letter that came from Auditor Lewis that was dated 12/17, which was just 2 days ago. This proposed budget has $5.6 million in expenses and $5.3 million in revenue. Okay. Right now, it's proposed that this budget is going to be just kind of rush through this Finance Committee tonight, and then we're going to have a special council meeting here later, and it's all going to be passed. Okay? The 173-page trial balance sheet has never been shared with the public. Why not? Why hasn't it been on Documents on Demand? This expense budget worksheet that compares 2023, 2024, and 2025 that the auditor provided to me is dated the 11th of December. This budget's been known since the 11th of December, according to this document. Why are we just now finding out on December 19th what the proposed budget is? Okay? There's a monitor here. This Finance Committee needs to put that 173-page document on that screen, hold a special meeting, and go through this budget line by line in front of the general public so they can see what's going on with this budget. Behind me right now is probably half a dozen to a dozen Bucyrus police officers. What do you think they're looking at here when they see that this city council has a budget that's $300,000 more in expenses than what their income is for 2025? We have an ordinance on our books that says there shall be 6 firemen on duty at all times. What that ordinance essentially means is there's not going to be a 1-for-1 layoff in police and fire. There's going to be a 0 layoff in fire and a 2 layoff in police, if that ever happens. This 2025 budget is a farce. The way this has been handled is a joke. And I'm laying that on you, Mr. Finance Committee Chair. You've been here longer than anybody else. You've been through 6 of these budgets. You should have known better than to try to ram this through tonight. That's all I got to say.
I can't help it. Sorry. Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth. First, it does not make any kind of sense why you would budget $5.6 million and only project you got $5.3 million. I mean, especially in a city that's already hurting. Just clearly, the minimum manpower for the fire department's an issue, right? I clearly remember you, Kevin, saying you passed that legislation because you did not trust the previous administration. Now, this has been a while, one of the last few times I had come to a city council meeting. And now we're going to reap the rewards of that decision. I think you guys, as city council, you need to take the minimum manpower back down to where the fire department was. They have not made, in my opinion, this is just my personal opinion, they have not made any effort to cut their cost. What'd we do? We added, they went to the union and made it to where the chief could count as a guy, right? To help alleviate overtime. Now, I know for sure that the Bucyrus Police Department, they've done as much as they could. They've got guys, they're working on minimum manpower all the time. You know, and then we run into situations where you got Carolyn having cops here on overtime because of all the drama that has been going on here. That probably needs to stop too. You know, the taxpayers we're not in a real good spot financially. And for the city to think that, well, we can just go over budget by $300,000 of projected income, and again, it's projected income. I would think that you would probably even want to come in under that with your budget, because you may not even bring in $5.3 million with the way things are going. And then there's a $600,000 surplus carryover, is that right? For this next budget, you got $600,000?
From 2024 to 2025.
Yes, is that right?
Yes, that's.
Okay. How much, now we have a fire truck renovation or wanting to buy a new one coming up, right? At some point, now I know that's been talked.
At some point, it's not in this budget.
No, I understand that.
Yeah.
But you have $600,000 of a carryover. And instead of taking that $600,000 and maybe looking to invest that into a new fire truck that you claim you need, we're going to propose $4.25 an hour cent raises. And we're going to give the service director a substantial raise. Now, I'm not saying any of you are or are not deserving of the raise and for the job you do and for dealing with people like me. But I'm telling you, you don't have the money. The taxpayers don't have the money. And it's pretty irresponsible to do what you're doing, like Kurt said, and not ever bringing that line item up here to the public. Now, maybe you planned on it, but you're running out of time, bud. I mean, my math's probably as good as yours since you're 300,000 over. What, you got 10 days, 12 days before the end of the year? So what's up with that? That is kind of odd. But I would ask you guys to kindly look at maybe cutting some cost. And I know you can't cut city workers, so it doesn't come out of this fund. Your math doesn't math, and it does not look good when we hear it out here. And the first time I heard it is some guy's YouTube channel, right? Now, I don't know if all the facts are in that. I don't care, other than it caused me to come here and ask you. That's the only reason I'm even here, is because the math doesn't add up. And then you start hearing about what I see as a very exorbitant raise, $4.25 an hour. That's a pretty exorbitant raise. Now, whether it's one person, two person, 10 people, it's still that's a lot of money over the long haul. And is it a drop in the bucket at the end of the year for the city? Maybe. But we'd like to see it. And again, back to the layoffs. It really doesn't seem fair to the police department that the rumors are, the risk is on them to be laid off because you passed legislation that requires the fire department to have 6. And that goes into a whole other mess, conversations you and I have had a few times with EMS and all that, right? So I don't think you've done the city any favors with any of that. That's just my opinion, but thank you.
Sure. I do want to address a couple of things before I will continue with public participation, but a couple of things I want to address. First and foremost, we're going to do everything within our power to avoid layoffs. If it were to come to that legislation you're speaking of for the fire department manning absolutely is on the table to be gotten rid of.
Let me ask you this, why don't you just do that now?
It has to be referred.
Okay.
So,
Because if you're willing to do it, and then we know it's coming
Absolutely.
down the road, just do it.
absolutely.
Quit giving us lip service.
I will refer it at our next regularly scheduled council meeting. With that, do you have anything you want to add to this, or you want to wait till public participation is over?
Well, I guess if we're going to, I'll go ahead and read this now, I guess, to address this, and then during the budget, we will go through any $10,000 or over dollar changes. So it might be a long night, everybody, sorry. I'll try to go through it quickly. So historically, the budget has been passed as an emergency in December. Last year, we had one finance committee meeting before passing the budget, the same as this year. The 2023 budget was not passed until January 3rd of 2023, with a finance committee meeting being held on December 30th, 2022. This was before this council or my time in office. And to be clear, I don't believe anyone was at fault there, but it can't hold up the operations of a city. I am giving this history to show that this year is not necessarily an outlier to be passing a budget as an emergency at this point of the year. As to why this budget is in our hands now as opposed to the last meeting or prior, a lot has been at flux within the city currently. 2 unions have been having negotiations with administration. There have been quite a few hiccups occurring along the way with the city's health care insurance. In fact, we have just settled on our broker this Monday. And we had just yesterday, for sure, decided we were going with Delta Dental and Delta Vision, I believe it's called, versus Cigna. So it's been very in flux. Both of these areas affect personal services, with factors greatly affecting other areas of the budget. For instance, there's going to be an increase in the cost of health care for this year. Okay, well then we need to make a decrease in capital outlay or materials and supplies. And if those are continuously happening all the way up till very recently, that's changing in the budget all the time. Normally, they're not continuing on this late in the year. We have been overspending revenues in the general fund since 2023's budget. We have had to give back pay to the fire department that year, as well as contend with raises that were awarded, increased overtime due to taking on ambulance services during COVID. In an effort to help keep staffing where it was, the city ran a 0.25% safety forces levy, but later in the year, police negotiated raises that took effect this year, which brought them on par with surrounding communities. Also, 2 officers who were being paid on a grant the last 2 years are now having to be paid out of the general fund and safety forces in 2025. What this boils down to is we will make it through the year ending in 2024 in the general fund with about $600,000 when taking into account outstanding purchase orders. The ending of 2025 is projected to be more than $200,000, probably between $200,000 and $300,000. So something absolutely needs to change in 2025 so that the city can remain in the black by the end of the year 2026. Also, for the public's information, when comparing the budget in 2024 to 2025, in total, the budget in 2023 was $38,346,434.46. The budget this year, is $34,171,729.57, which means we've actually cut $4 million in this budget versus the previous year. In the general fund alone, we've cut over $400,000 from the previous year. In conclusion, I don't want to make it seem like we're pushing through a budget because we're trying to sneak spending or increase anything and the public wouldn't be aware of it. It's just been a lot of road bumps along the way this year with the new administration and with all the changes that have occurred. In conclusion, we have decreased spending significantly for the 2025 budget year. The problem is we're still not within our revenues. So something truly does need to change, but I don't feel that prolonging the approval of this budget would help. And when we do move on to the budget, I will go through line items besides personal services. I will go through all the line items that have changed over $10,000. Okay.
Thanks. Did you have anything at this moment to add to that?
Yes, I would also just like to remind everybody that the budget is an administration thing. It's not something that's done by council, it's something that's approved by council. But council doesn't get it until the administration finishes it, and it can't get done until it gets done. And not to be disrespectful to anybody, but there's no requirements to be on city council other than living here and being over the age of 18. The budget is done by professionals. We work very hard. We found all kinds of stuff to cut. Next year is about growth and finding more things to cut. We're in an okay position, and if we do things right in 2025, we'll be fine. But we need your cooperation. And I think that's pretty much all I got to say.
What do you mean? What do you mean by cooperation?
Hmm?
What do you mean by our cooperation? What do you mean by that? Suggestion.
Quit wasting our time.
Oh, we're wasting your time by talking.
Explain it a little bit. We've had how many records requests in the last year?
Hold on.
Come on up to the podium. Yeah, come on up to the podium.
Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth Street. Now, sir, I appreciate you not trying to be disrespectful, and I'm trying not to be disrespectful as well. But your position is an elected position, correct? Now, I know you were appointed.
Yeah.
Right? Okay. You are just, what you said, the statement you just made is a shining example of what's wrong with our government. We are wasting your time. That's what I'm hearing from you. Now, I've been here a couple times this year, maybe. I don't believe anything I've said up here has been a waste of time. I've asked them questions. I don't know how that's wasting your time. You getting paid?
Yeah.
Are you being? I'm not. I could be out hanging out with my granddaughter tonight. But instead, I came here to find out what's going on with the city's budget. And for you, as an elected official, to sit here and say that all these people that continue to go out of their way to come here and be involved in their community and their city council is wasting your time is a bit absurd, but you're entitled to your opinion.
Sure.
No.
Let me clarify. I just mean all the drama, all the he said, she said, all the I want to fight,
I agree
I want
with
to
you
get the
there,
last
sir.
word, all that stuff.
Absolutely agree with you there.
That's what I mean is wasting time.
Okay. But I'm sorry for not understanding the context because you were looking at me when you said it. But that's fine.
Nothing personal.
Well, that's fine. Well, it can be personal all at once. Doesn't matter to me. But I still think, no matter what, whether you believe it's a waste of time or not, you as an elected official should sit there and shut your mouth and let the people that pay the bills in this building say what they need to say. And without telling them that they are wasting your time.
And another thing that would help greatly is if you do come and say something, at least try to make it accurate, because we spend an awful lot of time listening to people who say just beyond the pale wrong things that we then have to stop everything, figure out what's going on, and then say, okay, well, that wasn't right, this is right. Then things get confusing. Just do your research.
That's a valid point.
Yeah.
But again, I'm going to refer you back to being an elected official. And that just comes with the territory. That's what you have to deal with as an elected official.
We're just asking for some cooperation is
I
all.
understand, but not everybody has time to jump on Google and the internet and your demand documents on demand. Because guess what? We're spending 12 hours a day driving to work, working, and coming back to work and take care of our families too. Because if you ain't noticed, there's a bunch of us that work out of town. So we don't. When you want me to get on documents on demand, when I'm on 23 coming back from work after being out in the mud all day, that's disrespectful there.
You concluded at the moment, Robert?
I'm done.
Okay. Mr. White.
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. There's everything wrong about this committee. There is nothing right at all. And Mr. Law Director, you want some facts? Okay. I'm ready to give you some facts. So, according to this, the Safety Service Director is going to get almost a $9,000 raise. Okay? That's fact. 2, the Access Telecommunications Coordinator, who got a raise effective 1/1 of 2024, got 44 cents per hour. Now, at the end of this year, she's going to get, or whoever it is, $4.25 more increase. So, fact is, she's going to make $55,203.20. The mayor only makes $56,854.78. What in the heck is going on here? There's this is from all your facts. All these people, even the council clerk was getting a $5.25 an hour raise. With that, she's going to make $52,520. Now, if you guys lower it to $425, she's still going to make $50,000 a year for being the council clerk. That's outrageous. That is totally outrageous. Plus, we have to pay 85% of every employee's insurance, correct? Plus, we have to pay their PERS claims, their retirement system. What is that all going to cost per individual employee with this $24.25 an hour raise? Plus, it's my understanding, and the auditor can correct me, with this new insurance, the city is going to pay different amounts for each individual person depending on the situation. Am I correct or not?
No, for that, we'll still be paying the same. I think Vicki might have been wanting to ask questions about the health care maybe later, so I can explain it now. So there's going to be, because we're in a situation where we're exiting a consortium when we changed insurance, and quickly, a consortium is where a bunch of cities go together to bring down the rates for the city. Because we're exiting a consortium, any bill, healthcare bill, that will not be billed, that occurred in the 2024 year but will not be billed until the 2025 year, the city will be responsible for, so we have to pay it. So they will be individuals' bills, but we will still break them down between all the funds like we would a regular healthcare payment.
But what's that going to cost the city? You have no idea yet, do you?
No.
You have a rough.
It depends. We don't know what healthcare claims are out there.
Right. The other question I have too, and this was kind of interesting too. Civil Service, and this is fact, Civil Service Commission clerk got over $1,100 raise. How many times do they meet per year? I mean, even the commissioners are paid, and they're going to make $1,978.80 a year now under this new proposed $425. How many times a year do they meet? Does any other commission get paid? Does the airport commission get paid? Does any other commission get paid? No. Only the Civil Service Commission. Why? Why are they being paid and no one else is being paid to be on a commission? That's ridiculous. That's a lot of money there. 3 members there, $6,000 plus hers. That's almost $12,000 in revenue being spent on a Civil Service Commission. This is just outlandish. And then we ought to talk about the Manpower and Building Act. So why aren't we hiring part-time people to supplement certain areas in our government? We hire them for the parks. Why don't we hire them for other sections? ODOT, they hire seasonal people. Once in the winter, once in the summertime. To help plow roads, to help work on roads and stuff like this. Why aren't we looking at that? Mr. Law Director, I kind of agree with you on some points. Why doesn't the Finance Committee and this administration, or any administration to a point, Allow citizens to come in and help find ways to save money. It's our tax dollars you're spending, okay? It's my property taxes. It's my taxes that I pay in income. And yes, I work out of town too. All right? So yes, I have a vested interest in this. But nowhere has anybody from this administration or this council or even this freaking committee has asked for public participation to say, hey, where can we find ways to save money? I'm willing to volunteer my time to come in and do that. I bet you I could find hundreds of thousands of dollars in savings. I'm sure there's other people in the community too could do that too. However, you guys don't want our input. This chairman don't care. He just wants to run it right through. I found that out the other day. That's why I spoke when I spoke Tuesday night. There's going to be a special council meeting to pass this thing through without the public knowing anything. And I think that is not being transparent whatsoever. Not one iota. Thank you.
Mr. Chairman, may I say something?
Yes, ma'am.
Or may I have the floor?
You may.
Two things. I would like to correct a statement that Mr. Myers made, and I can understand with all that's going on how we, we're human. We can't keep everything straight. We're trying. But as far as the fire department staffing, the ordinance 12-2023, which is the mandatory 6-man on duty, that is in the Health and Safety Committee. So there will be no need to, refer it to committee. It's in our committee already. Secondly, in response to Mr. White's comment, these are the facts. You did not give the correct fact on the hourly pay for the council clerk. Yes, the legislation that was prepared did state $25.25 per hour. However, at Tuesday night's council meeting, which you were in attendance, Mr. White, I stated that there was an error in that figure and that the $4.25 was added to the 2025 hourly rate that the council clerk would receive. So that's why this piece was referred back to our committee to correct that figure of $25.25 to $24.25. So I just want everyone to know that that's the fact. It's $24.25 per hour.
Well, Mr. Son, you must not have been listening to me because I stated for the fact, the first one at $5.25, and then I stated the second one at $4.25. It's on tape. You must not have been listening to me because I said at the $4.25 hour rate, she would still be making $50,000 per year, over $50,000 per year. That's a $10,000 raise in the clerk's salary.
Then I apologize, I misunderstood. When you said $4.25, I'm looking at the $4.25.
That's what I was looking at, ma'am.
Per hour.
I specifically stated at $4.25, she
Mr.
would
White,
be, she would,
excuse me.
I'm talking now.
And I said, excuse me.
Okay.
Can we have a little decorum? Please?
Okay, yes. So basically, she's still making over $50,000, okay? With all the inconsistencies, and I'm going to come back up and talk about those, about the council clerk's position, because stuff is not being done correctly. Things are being missed. I bet you the records aren't even up to date yet in the clerk's office under records retention laws. I don't think they are, but I'm going to come back up and ask. The other thing too, these fine men and women back here that serve our police department are getting screwed over by this committee. I don't want to stand for that, okay? Whatsoever. You guys need to cancel this, table this for these raises for $4.25 for everybody else until you guys can get your crapola together. Then you can come back and maybe give them a raise. Okay? But you need to take care of these people back here because they take care of us. And you know what? When you're going to need somebody and there's only 2 officers on per shift, I have a concern about that with officer safety. Obviously, this committee has no recollection about that. People don't even care about that.
I do take exception to that comment.
Well, that's too bad. That's my
Let's maintain the
constitutional
decorum,
right.
please.
That's fine. It's my constitutional right, and I know you hate that.
I never said I hated that.
Yeah, you did. You already told me once on
All
tape.
right. Anything else? Mr. White?
So basically, I think this committee needs to table this $4.25 for everybody else until this city can actually get their act together and figure out if they're going to have enough money or not to do that, and take care of these people back here who take care of us. Because I tell you what, when you people are going to come up with levies coming up next year that you want to file, and you want to come after the out-of-town tax credits and stuff like that, telling you what, you'll probably get a no vote again. Thank you.
Mr. Reese.
With 1,920 hours she puts in a year at $24.25, that's $46,560. It's not 50.
And she brings home half of that and lives on.
And taxes.
Yeah, and
Just saying.
can I get in here for a sec? Yeah.
I'm fine.
I guess there's some disconnect. When I was writing that legislation, is my understanding that the extra dollar was intended, the union signed off on it. I thought everybody was in agreement on that. I mean, at this point, it's not even really about the dollar. I mean, Miranda does a lot of good, hard work. And to put it bluntly, she has to deal with all of you way more than I do. And I have to deal with you guys all the time.
Sorry.
It's not even about the dollar. I bet it's what? $2,050. I bet if I whipped out $2,000 right now, it wouldn't make it go away because it's not about the dollar. It's wildly disrespectful. It's just disrespectful, and I'm surprised she hasn't Todd Hilled out of here. And I don't want that to happen. I love working with Miranda. She is a phenomenal clerk.
And can I just say too that I take issue with what seems like that we were pitting the police force, who I respect greatly, against in some way a manpower clerk. Because I've spoken just recently with the police chief, and he was actually saying how well he thinks Miranda does and how we're lucky to have her. And I don't think he would agree with some of the statements that were said today. Now, I don't want to put words in his mouth, but just from very recent conversations I've had. And I would also like to say, I think it was last month, there was a time when our website was down, right before people would have to go and make utility payments to possibly get their water shut off. And no one knew what was going on. No one knew how to fix it. Bonnie, who, love you, Bonnie, she had plans that night to be in Columbus, and she had a doctor's appointment, so she came in briefly, but she had to leave. And then, but Miranda, who is our council clerk, no way related to the internet, was able to go in there, call, get people on the phone, was talking with multiple people to get our website back up and running so people could make their payments over that weekend so they would not get their water possibly shut off. So she does a lot more than you necessarily get to see, I guess, behind the scenes.
Lisa.
Lisa Alsept, 1323 North Sandusky. I'm probably a little more positive. I would like to let council know, I voted no on the property tax levy, but I want to let you know why. My taxes went up, and I don't know how much. To this day, I still don't know how much. I can't vote for something in good conscience. I would like to have, but until I know what my initial increase is from the reval, I can't say, yeah, I can afford more, because more than what? More than how much? The police got a decent raise. She is important. I think people are stuck on the $4.25 an hour. I don't know. They have asked for help in cutting things down. I messaged a list to James and to Bruce and maybe even to Vicki, I think, of a list of costs. It does take a whole community. They didn't decide the raises. And Kevin was placed in that position by you, Kurt. You're the president who places people on committees. So you just kicked yourself. I just would like to see everybody work a little more together. There are cuts to be made. It looks like they made almost $4 million in cuts. That's a lot. Is there more that's going to have to be made? Yeah. I like that this administration doesn't put the police against the fire. That needed to stop. They all need a living wage. They were given raises. I think the guys are happy. We just have to find more cuts, and that's going to take people from the community with suggestions, not accusations.
Any other public participation?
Devin Wireman, 500 Bucyrus, or South Sandusky. It's my protected address. Probably gonna get in trouble because we're not supposed to come up here and talk, but I just want to say that we do appreciate Miranda, everything she does, everything you guys do in council, every city employee. We're out here doing the same stuff. You got guys digging trenches when the water mains break. As a city employee, I don't want to be pinned against any other city employee. We're a city together. We have to come back to that. Unfortunately, money causes problems. We get that. The fire department needs staff. We need staff. We are put in a very strange predicament when you have two officers for a city this size. I worked for Crestline PD. We had two guys running on a shift. I had a partner. If we needed help, Galleon, the county came in. I remember riding as auxiliary here when there was 4 minimum on second shift. And even then they were, humping the dog, trying to get stuff done, take calls, be proactive. As I said before, up here, we're a very proactive young department right now. We have a lot of retirements coming up. We've got testing for captain. We've got testing for lieutenants coming up. We've built the department from basically the ground up, restarting. I'm Unit 4. I started at Unit 12. I've only been here going on 4 years. That's almost unheard of anywhere. You guys got a hard job. You have a lot of decisions you have to make that are going to upset some people, and I get that. I don't have the answer for you. I would just like, from the police department side, to let everybody know that we do support every single person that works for this city. We support all you guys. We appreciate what you do for us. And I would like to say that, yeah, we're suffering with 2 guys on the road. It sucks. We just had officers assaulted on a traffic stop last week. Nobody really knows what happens to us day to day, because if it's not on Facebook, nobody knows about it. For our safety, my shooting, to bring that up, there was 2 guys working. If he would have took both of us out and continued on, who knows where he would have been or what he would have done. So I don't have the answers. I know that we need staffing for the fire department, for us, city workers. That's all important stuff. So I just hope that you guys make the cuts where it doesn't take manpower at first, you know what I'm saying? To take guys off the road, if we're down to just 2 guys and a dispatcher, as we already are. And I think our chief made that decision to try to help with the budget, not because that's the minimum we need. Our minimum staffing is not what our minimum staffing should be, is what I'm trying to say. So if you guys can make cuts, that's great. Just hopefully not taking our young guys that we've begged to come here. We have actual people that want to apply here that have experience now, and we've fought to get that. And now those guys are looking other places too, because we were going to put a test out and now we can't, and it's really hard it seems like every time we get to where we need to be with that, something in the budget comes up and we're up here talking about we don't have money and things like that, and it hits us pretty hard. So I just want to say I appreciate you, Miranda. I appreciate everybody up here, and hopefully we can come together. 2025, I would love to see the city prosper, get bigger. We do need housing. I talk to tons of people about that every day. We have homeless people out there who need housing, need jobs. There's people I talk to on traffic stops, just passing through. Oh, it's a nice place. Just can't find any housing here. Like, there's nothing available. It's all real quick off the market. That should say something. Even with everything going on, houses sell really quickly here. You know? So people do want to be here. I want to be here. This whole group back here, we're young, we want to help, you know? That's all I got to say. Thank you.
I will echo that. Thank you for that. I will echo a sentiment there. You know, and I mentioned it earlier, and I'm going to say it again. We don't want to lay anybody off, and it's not lost on us. If we laid somebody off, they're not going to sit out there and wait to get called back. They're going to go work somewhere else. We don't want to lose you guys. I hope you understand that. Thank you.
Clarissa Slater, 3645 State Route 4. First of all, I have said a sentiment a couple times, but I think that strong, intelligent women intimidate small, weak men, and that's been seen very apparent today. First of all, Miranda, you're one of maybe the most professional people that I have ever met. I was in crisis negotiation at a prison where I had men trying to stab other men, and I had to negotiate a knife out of their hand, and I think you were a better negotiator than any of my colleagues that I've ever seen. So, for that, I thank you for being so professional in the face of a lot of different opinions. Second of all, Kaylee and Miranda, I'm going to apologize to both of you on behalf of some of the audience members tonight because they're not big enough men to do it themselves. I am so sorry that someone would talk to you that way because I'm about to get like shaking mad, which I usually tear up when I do that, so I apologize. I had a conversation which a lot of these arguments and opinions could be squashed if someone would actually call your office, which I know that you would more than happy talk to the public because you've more than happy have talked to me more than once. I know how much time and how many times things have changed in the last couple months. So I want to personally thank you and apologize for the behavior tonight on behalf of the men that won't do that because I really appreciate you and I'm so mad right now, I'm so sorry. But so at first I just want to say thank you. And I'm also sorry that they can't apparently be adults at 70 years old, I believe, and maintain some decorum. So, yes. Yeah, not a problem. So I will go ahead and finish on what I was going to say, and a lot of this echoes what has already been said tonight, so I apologize if there's a repeating. You guys we've had all year to, as public participants, to bring ideas. So, you know, this is not a problem. We knew this back in January when the presentation was made. So first of all, I am disappointed but not surprised by Mr. Fankhauser's efforts to criticize his council, which he's supposed to lead. A true leader would not understand or would understand the roles of local government members instead of taking advantage of what citizens don't know. He is using a framing technique to mislead facts. Even intelligent, well-educated individuals can fall victim to manipulative tactics. He engages in emotionally charged wording and half-truths to push his narrative. I encourage everyone watching at home and here today to think for themselves and show Mr. Fankhauser that citizens are more informed than he believes. We could all sit here and list his deplorable...
Ms. Slater, I'm going to ask you to refrain from the personal attacks, please. In fact, he's not a member of this committee.
Correct. So let me move on. Most recently, a YouTube video was titled, "Is the 2025 City of Bucyrus budget being rammed through by Finance Chair Kevin Myers?" This is categorized as a loaded question, and I'm bringing this up because it is relevant to the facts that is happening today. And I want to let people know that there's ways to find out if something is a loaded question, which gets brought up regularly during council meetings. Does it assume someone's guilty? A finger was pointed directly at Kevin Myers. Does it invoke emotional language, rammed, and suggest haphazardness? Does it carry a negative connotation? It blames Kevin Myers for the budget issues, and it leads to a conclusion. So with all that, I hope moving forward we can look at these and see that how this is framed. So I'm going to move on from that and say that based of the fact-finding and conversations I've had, as well as AFSCME union steward training that I've had in the past, I have some thoughts on this. It is insinuated that Ohio sunshine laws were violated by doing serial meetings, accusing the Finance Committee of talking to each other in separate small groups. Colloquially, I've heard this called as a round robin. I would be remiss if I didn't mention the summary of his take. He states that the open meeting acts have been broken. One or two of members having a discussion with the auditor, and then also a proposed budget via email. No decisions have been made, so there's no violations of the Open Meetings Act. There's times that Mr. Fankhauser has also not complied to that and has actively worked against the law director's opinion and not providing documentation. So I will move on that because I don't want to do any personal attacks. You're welcome to read. Mrs. Dishon has also been a victim of this, and I just want to also say to Mrs. Dishon that I am sorry for the behavior of men out in the audience tonight who have also attacked you and treated you improperly. Yes, sir. While she did sue, we also should commend her for holding the city accountable rather than blame her. Her efforts most likely did save the city money. I know that sounds like a contradiction. Considering the persistent disregard for the state law at the time, it also led to corrective action that set policies and procedures for meeting minutes, records, notices, and public records requests before that we had nothing of. As a law clerk, she maintained personal insight to the right documents, and a recording of a 7-year-old recording that had misleading information and was basically cropped together was stems from probably most likely hurt feelings. Essentially, sorry, I'm cutting through here to not to be inappropriate.
I would like to ask you to keep it pertinent to the finance committee.
Yes, I am. If anyone should be consulted regarding Ohio sunshine laws and the supposed actions of having serial meetings, it should be Mrs. Dishon, not Mr. Fankhauser. But back to the budget. To prepare for the 2025 budget, we must recognize the roles involved. Auditor Kaylee Lewis is currently our only trained official in budget management, and in small government, more than one person wears many hats. She has been working long hours to balance our budget, and she has kindly addressed the concerns from citizens when requested. Personally has taken the time to address those concerns with me, and she's a dutiful public servant. She wants better for Bucyrus and has made numerous personal sacrifices. Sorry, I'm so mad. Including turning down a new job opportunity. I don't think I would do the same. She feels it's improper to leave the city when it relies on her assistance. From my understanding, issues arose late last November or early December that significantly delayed the budget submission to the Finance Committee, which was addressed. So, the first was the insurance. We talked about that. I disagree with how the insurance is being handled. My husband works for Columbus City, and he has a higher premium and a huge, much bigger tax base than Bucyrus. Our premiums are higher, our co-pays are higher. There's no co-pays currently from what was proposed. If that's changed, then so be it. But currently, for medications, there's no co-pays. That's like unheard of. You can't get that with any other city. So I criticize and profoundly disagree with the administration's choices, but I believe in respectful disagreement. This is a fight for another day, one I plan to bring up again in the future. The AFSCME reopener comments I made are directly from my experience as a union steward at AFSCME, OCSEA, AFL-CIO. The city has poorly handled union contracts in the past, and that has been starting with not using a negotiation lawyer in some instances. It has led to bad favors for management and good favors for union, and that did happen especially with the IAFF and FOP contracts. And so I understand why the AFSCME is needing the $450 universal pay raise, because if we have a budget for my understanding, correct me if I'm wrong, but if we have a budget freeze, if we have a pay freeze, and AFSCME is significantly lower than the rest of the unions, that's unfavorable treatment towards AFSCME, and that can lead to a lawsuit, which is going to what? Then cause more money out of the city's pocket to fight a lawsuit for a new union contract, and then all the way at the end of the day, we're going to end up paying the $450, maybe even more, for the AFSCME union to be on par or have the same parity as the rest of the unions. Same thing with billet and manpower. It can be seen as unfavorable treatment because they're not in a union. So I understand why everyone has to be equaled out. We can't go back and change the past. So I just feel like moving forward, I hope everyone can just work together. I'm disappointed with the manipulative tactics surrounding the 2025 budget. I mean, basically we have such a big turnout right now solely because someone went out and made a video to invoke emotional language and get people up here screaming at you, having our members of council, the finance committee in general, being treated inappropriately up here because of half-truths and lies. So, long story short, I feel like we just need to stop using misleading tactics, stop using, I included some logical fallacies so you could look out for them. Please just ask questions and talk to your council members. I mean, I don't know how many times I've come up here and talked, but I'm pretty sure most of you can say I've had literal hour conversations with each of you that have been 10 times longer than the times that I've been up here. So it's not just a show. It's like, just if you care about your city, go and actually put in the work with your council members and your elected officials, ask them questions, and then you do end up in a brainstorming session and you can actually help instead of attacking them. So that's all I have. I'm sorry I'm angry. And I appreciate everything you guys have done. And this is a part-time job, and you guys make $400 a month, and that's insane to me. So, but thank you for everything you've done.
I'll say something real quick. Okay. So to touch on what Ms. Slater just said, she's kind of playing my hand for me before the union negotiations start. But she is right. It's going to cause more problems down the road. That's the whole point when I said 2 weeks ago, or whatever, that it's going to help us when the contract comes due in 2025. It puts us in a pretty good bargaining position. And we're fine. We have to make changes in 2025, and I think we can do them. I think if we all work together and everything is done right and we thread the needle, we can fix it by the end of 2025. But if we can't, we got to do a budget freeze. And doing it now while we can is going to put us in a much better bargaining position, because then we can argue percents, not actual dollars. And the percents are just strictly to combat inflation. So, like I said, do your homework before you come up. Thank you.
Fankhauser, 616 Prospect. Just want to follow up, since I'm the clerk's direct supervisor, I do want to publicly state that Miranda is, I've worked with 3 different clerks, and Miranda is by far the best out of all 3. And I just want to come up here and publicly state that. Second, it was mentioned that delaying passage of the 2025 budget isn't going to accomplish anything. I disagree. I think that putting this budget out there and letting the public have a chance to review it for transparency is accomplishing something, okay? Now, does it have to be passed tonight? No. It can actually be passed as far in as the first week in January. It's been done in the past. The auditor actually just mentioned it. A couple years ago it was done that way. Okay? A lot of stuff's been said tonight, but there's really only thing that matters. 1 + 1 = 2, and you guys are $300,000 short.
Any other public participation? All right, we're going to move on. The first topic on our agenda is the approval of the minutes from December 4th, 2024 regular Finance Committee meeting. Do I hear a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Me and a second by Mr. Moritz. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
Yes.
I mean, yes, that motion carries. Next up, you have the 2025 budget. And for clarity's sake, all the things that Auditor Lewis spoke of were emailed to the committee members on 12/11 of '24, and they had it for review. And so I'll open the floor up. Mr. Me, do you have any questions, suggestions, comments, or otherwise?
I'm good. I've been through it all, so.
Mr. Moritz?
I'm good. I actually spent some time talking with Keely too and looking at this, so I'm good with what we have on there.
Mrs. Dishon?
I'm fine.
All right. I will also say that I'm fine with what I looked at. I will commend you as well as the administration for the cuts that they made. It was very nice to see the higher dollar amount of cuts that were done. So it's up to you, committee. I'll ask you.
May I just go through the
You
lines
may,
that
yes.
went over?
Yeah, I forgot
Okay.
you said you wanted to do that.
You're fine. I just wanted to tell you too, any salary lines that were affected by the manpower or the ask of me, I increased those salary lines by 16.8%. And here's something to understand too, because of those rollover payments we were talking about earlier, I had to increase the hospitalization and a lot of the funds by I believe it was 28.4%, because we have to budget for the worst and then hope for the best, right? So it's very possible we won't use all those funds in the hospitalization lines, but they had to be in the budget. So that also increases the budget in ways we might not actually have to use those funds. So that would have been personal services, which aren't typically reflected here. And I'm pulling this from a sheet that administration uses after we pass the budget. This isn't something that's typically made public. It could be if you want to do an open records request for it. But this is typically because when they get their detailed trial balance, when they see the budget, it's just a lump of money. So this helps organize it so they're not writing a purchase order for something and thinking, oh, we have $1 million on this line. And then they're like, oh, crap. Sorry, shouldn't have said that word. And then they go, oh, we should have, we forgot that we have to write $1 million project out of that line or something. So this is just for their record keeping so they don't overspend in the wrong areas, but it's helpful with the budget. So, and I also did want to mention too, the whole reason there were initial emails that went out to Finance Committee that had included, and they all said draft 2025 budget, draft expense budget worksheet initial, and then budget changes, and that last one was this. The reason that exists is because I overshare information, I guess. If I have it, I want to give it so everyone can look at it. Mr. Myers had asked for the expense budget worksheet because Ms. Schiffer had previously given it, Mrs. Schiffer had previously given it to them every year. The issue with that is the difficulty is you have to export all the account lines from our software into an Excel spreadsheet, change every single line item you see in here by hand, and then re-upload it into the system in a way that has to correctly mirror the ordinance that we will pass to the penny so that it goes through audit correctly. So on my computer, I have two screens, thanks to Mr. Fankhauser. And one I have the Excel spreadsheet on, and one I have the Microsoft Word, because we're really advanced here, on. And I go through and I auto sum 1,000,000 times, and then I check it with the legislation. So when I upload it, if it passes that way, the legislation's complete and accurate. So because Mr. Myers asked for this expense budget worksheet, I had the budget as it would have stood if that passed exactly as is at the same time. So I just sent the draft budget and the draft or expense budget worksheet at the exact same time to Finance Committee, because I overshare information. And then if Ms. Dishon, because she cares about legislation and its accuracy, if she wanted to go back and forth and compare, she could make sure that those amounts were correct down to the penny. So that's why all that was added there. I could have saved the budget and not emailed it or anything as well. And then when I emailed the other council members as well as the council president on December 16th, in that email as well, the subject was the draft budget 2025 and the attachment said draft budget ordinance. All right, so now going through here, and I explained the personal services and the increases in salary lines and the hospitalization lines. Radio maintenance in the general fund is a grant that we receive from the fire department for the Marks radio systems. That is $13,303.74. So it was an increase, but it wasn't actually, at least on this paper it is, but it actually wasn't any money that will come out of taxpayer money. The clerk's hospitalization went up because I don't think she would mind if I shared that she got married. So she went from single to family insurance. Council clerk's salary went up because she's paid fully from the general fund. A lot of the places in the general fund, you won't see the full increase because a lot of our manpower employees are split out of general fund as well as the other funds. And just so you guys know and are aware as well, by passing the manpower, it would increase the burden on the general fund only $43,388 and rounding up 31 cents. Okay. Theater demo local share, it went up in the budget. I actually just budgeted the full amount of the funds that were in that fund. So if they went to build a ramp at the art park, because there's a lot of issues with the elevator, that money, all the money that is currently in that fund is there and available for them to spend. We don't have to bring it back and appropriate and pay for the legislation. We are doing new EDP equipment across the board because they're, correct me if I'm,
clarify what EDP is for the public?
You know, that's a great question that I don't know the answer to.
Electronic data processing, computer equipment.
I knew it was computer equipment, but I didn't know what the acronym was for. Now, Miranda, correct me if I'm wrong, the reason we're updating that is because there's a Windows update, Microsoft Windows update.
Essentially, so Microsoft is stopping the update of their services for Windows 10 and before, effective October of 2025. So that puts us basically at a security risk, essentially, not getting those updated security programs and updated Windows browsers and such.
Okay. And so what's happening is we are budgeting to replace that equipment, but in an attempt to save money, we're going to see if the service director can go out and do like a bulk purchase with the company. That way it will save us money, because in prior years it'd be like, okay, I'll just buy a computer from Staples, I'll buy a computer from Amazon, I'll buy a computer. So we are trying to effectively save money in creative ways. We had a lot of cuts. That's gas, and there are some increases because in this year, with the recommendation from the state auditor's office for better budgeting practices, I believe I said in my auditor's report, they thought we should combine the police and fire and take their expenses from the general fund and put them solely in the safety forces fund, so it's easier to view. So if you look, the budget will be increased. It will appear a lot in safety forces, but it's actually the combination of taking the money that used to be split between both the general fund and safety forces and increasing it there. So let's see. For instance, gas and oil for police. In the safety forces fund, it used to be $13,000. We combined the general fund and the safety forces fund all into the safety forces fund, so now it is $45,000. The amount didn't increase, it just moved from one fund to another. Civilian employee salary did increase for a 2.5% raise. The fire salaries did increase for, and once again, I'm budgeting for what I anticipate will happen. So we increased it due to fire negotiations. I don't want to give away our hand, so don't look, guys. The in the street department, outside engineering went from $66,831.35 in 2024 to $175,000 in 2025. That is for a sidewalk project in 2026, and this is for engineering from Southern to Perry Street, and another small project, and then the street program engineering will be $100,000. Outside contracts went from, actually that went down. In streets, the street improvement line went up from $1,180,158.06 to $1,210,000. We are currently discussing removing a Beverly Drive project, so we would possibly be decreasing the budget early next year to remove that project, which would save us $457,059. And there are a lot of pages here, but most of the changes are that we are cutting. In the water distribution fund and outside contractors, in 2024, the outside contracts were $135,095. It is increasing to $207,000. That is for leak detection, $995 a year for BSI online back leak, $350 for micro something, and then I'm assuming these are subscriptions to Microsoft 365 because it says $804.40 in brackets. There's also $127,000 included in that for a leak that is currently happening. We're trying to get corrected. In lands and buildings, there is an increase in outside contracts from 2024 from $124,745 to $158,000. That is for our contract to paint the water towers. You do it for like 3 years and then they decrease. I believe, if I'm explaining that right, I have to double check with Chad Slagle. And this is the last year, so it's our lower payment. It's $158,000. And that's the only thing budgeted in that line. Outside engineering and sewers and drains, we have the Northeast engineering cost and South Sandusky engineering cost. That's $95,000 plus any other small outside engineering contracts we would have. Outside contracts went from $60,280 to $147,500. We are also discussing decreasing that line as well by $87,500 to remove that project. Under stormwater utility, under outside contractors, we were, in 2024, it was $112,295. That increased to $199,500. That was also a project for $87,500 that we're talking about decreasing from this fund. They're the same project, we're split out of two funds. But, just to give you guys an example of the cuts, for stormwater improvements, last year we had budgeted $1,607,571.71, and we cut that budget down to $100,000. So, over $1.5 million cut there. Stormwater interceptor, that was cut. Yeah, and that's it. Those are all the major changes within the budget that were brought to us by department heads to administration when we had discussions with them.
Mr. May? Any questions? No. Mr. Moritz? Mrs. Dishon? All right, it's up to you, committee. What do you want to do?
I'll make the motion to pass the 2025 budget.
So your motion would be to request emergency legislation.
Emergency legislation.
Passing the 2025 budget. I have a motion by Mr. Mee. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Mee and a second by Mr. Moritz. Any discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Mee?
Yes.
Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
No.
I'm a yes. 3-1. All right, year-end appropriations, transfers and reductions of appropriations. Ms. Lewis?
For the decrease of appropriations piece for December 19th, 2024, this is to bring us in line with revenues. In general fund program 7, general government, department 7780 is 7781, general government, under item line 27, transfers, deducting $600,000. In fund 261, WSRLA Nevada water line, under program 7535, sewage disposal, under line 25, capital outlay, deducting $107,877.20. In Fund 264, the FEMA 2023 539 North Lane Street Fund, under program 7780, general government, item line 28, other uses, deducting $14,183.85. Under Fund 280, the airport grant, program 7620 airport, line item 25, capital outlay, deducting $455,000. Under Fund 402, OPWC Nevada water line, program 7525 water distribution, item line 25, capital outlay, deducting $130,000. And Fund 403, H2 Ohio Grant Nevada Water Line, Program 7525, Waterworks Distribution, Item Line 25, Capital Outlay, deducting $800,000. In Fund 404, ODNR All Miller Walking Path, Program 7770, Lands and Buildings, Item number 23, Contractual Services, deducting $50,000. And Item Line 25, Capital Outlay, deducting $382,000. Under Fund 409, OPWC Dudley Street Reconstruction Sewer Separation, under Program 7610 Street CM&R, and Item Line 25 Capital Outlay, deducting $62,000. Program 7540 Sewers and Drains, Item Line 25 Capital Outlay, deducting $62,000. Program 7545 Stormwater Capital, line Item 25 Capital Outlay, deducting $61,000. Sorry, my mouth's getting dry. Under Fund 417, wastewater plant construction, Program 7535, sewage disposal, item line 25, capital outlay, deducting $2,339,640.45. Under Fund 430, fire levy, Program 7115, fire department, item line 25, capital outlay, deducting $70. In Fund 701, Waterworks, Program 7520, Waterworks Administration, item line 21, personal services, deducting $40,000. Program 7525, Distribution, item line 23, contractual services, deducting $30,000. Item line 24, materials and supplies, deducting $55,000. Item line 25, capital outlay, deducting $1,374,143.38. Program 7910, debt retirement, item line transfers 27, deducting $50,000. And that's it for the reductions.
All right, if I could interrupt you briefly, I will entertain a motion requesting emergency legislation for the year-end reductions of appropriations.
So moved.
Second. I have a motion by Mr. Me, a second by Mr. Moritz. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
Yes.
I'm a yes, that motion carries. You may continue, Auditor.
As for appropriations for December 19th, 2024, for year end, under General Fund, Program 1, Securities of Persons and Property, under Program 7120, Street Lighting, and item line 23, Contractual Services, increasing the line by $17,000. Under General Fund, Program 7, General Government, under Program 7710, Mayor, item line 21, Personal Services, increasing at $8,500. Under Program 7712, Administration, item line 99, refunds, increasing at $10,000. Under Program 7715 and 7716, auditor and item line 21, personal services, increasing at $2,000. Under Program 7725, 7726, 7727, and 7728, law director. Under item line 21, personal services, increasing at $6,000. Under Program 7730, service director, item line 21, personal services, increasing at $500. Under Program 7745 and 7746, civil service, item line 21, personal services, increasing at $300. Under Program 7780, 7781, general government, under item line 21, personal services, increasing at $3,000. In Fund 264, FEMA 2023-539 North Lane Street, under Program 7780, general government, item line 23, contractual services, increasing at $14,183.85. Under Fund 266, ARPA 2022 Ohio Criminal Justice Fund, Program 7110 and 7111 Police Department, item line 21, personal services, increasing the line $2,702.50. Under Fund 281, 2024 Ohio Crime Victims Assistant Grant, under Program 7111 Police Department, and item line 21, personal services, increasing at $2,396.33. Under the 701 Waterworks Fund, under Program 7522 filtration, under item line 21, personal services, increasing at $20,000. Under item line 24, materials and supplies, increasing at $15,000. In Program 7525 distribution, item line 21, personal services, increasing at $30,000. In Fund 720, sewage disposal, Program 7535, sewage disposal operations and maintenance, item line 21, personal services, increasing at $20,000. Program 7540, sewers and drains, item line 21, personal services, increasing at $25,000. In Fund 750, solid waste management, Program 7515, solid waste, item line 21, personal services, increasing at $15,000. And in Fund 760, stormwater utility, under Program 7910, debt retirement, item line 26, debt retirement, increasing at $3,000.
All right, I will entertain a motion requesting emergency legislation for the year-end appropriations.
I'll make a motion for year-end emergency legislation for that.
Second.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Moritz and a second by Mr. Me. Is there any discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Anything else at this moment, Auditor Lewis?
No, I don't believe so.
All right. Next, we have manpower and billet, and we had requested draft legislation. You have that before you. I don't know if you have any questions or discussion, or if you want to request the legislation. Mr. Me, any questions?
No.
Mr. Moritz?
No.
Mrs. Dishon?
No.
All right. I would entertain a motion requesting emergency legislation for both. Do we need to do them separately?
Yeah.
Okay, so we'll start with the manpower ordinance.
Request legislation to pass the manpower ordinance.
That's emergency or not?
As emergency?
Yes, sir.
As an emergency.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Moritz and a second by Mr. Me. Any discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
No.
And I'm a yes. All right, next is the billet. Again, I'll ask any questions, Mr. Me?
No.
Mr. Moritz?
No.
Mrs. Dishon?
No.
All right, I will request, or I'll entertain a motion, I should say, requesting emergency legislation for the billet.
So moved.
Second.
I have a motion by Mr. Me and a second by Mr. Moritz. Is there any discussion?
No.
If not, do a roll call vote. Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
Yes.
And I'm a yes. Motion carries. All right, next you have before you proposed resolution number 238-2024, which was sent back, and that discusses the pay rate of the council clerk. Discussion would be, is it at the 425 increase to the 2024 amount, or the 425 increase to the 2025 amount? So,
How was it negotiated?
That it was in an extra dollar.
And that was to bring her up to...
I think what he's asking, compared it to what we did with the other employees.
Right, so Miranda's position was incredibly low back in 2021. I believe that position is still making less than the galleon clerk at that point. The extra dollar, we don't have much, but it was my understanding that it was a thank you.
Any comment?
No. I think she does a great job.
Mr. Mead, do you have any questions or other comments?
I'd like to see it passed is with the extra dollar.
Mr. Mead, any questions or comments?
Mr. Moritz.
Mr. Moritz, I'm looking right at you. I got your back.
My concern is doing this, I think she needs it. My one concern is if we did do that to 5, it might cause trouble down the road for other negotiations for something going down the road. As far as negotiations with other.
I don't see that being a problem. The Ask Me unit signed off on it. They were totally for it.
Then I have no further discussion. I'm fine with it.
Mrs. Dishon, any questions or comments?
No.
All right.
Question, did we allow for that in the budget?
I believe. It's been a little bit, sorry. Yes, I believe I calculated at the percentage that was initially discussed upon.
Okay.
So.
So at this point, we need a motion one way or the other for it.
I'd like to make a motion that we leave it as is.
All right, so the question I'm going to ask is, I don't have that one right in front of me. Was that written retroactive to January 1st, or do we have to change the wording?
It was retroactive.
Okay.
Yeah.
So your motion is that,
We leave it as it is.
okay, are you asking for emergency or non-emergency?
Just to save Kaylee a headache, I would say as an emergency.
So again, just to reiterate, your motion is requesting emergency legislation putting Resolution 238, 2024 as written back to a full council vote at the next meeting.
I don't think we should do it as emergency.
You just said that.
I'm thinking.
If we're making it retroactive, do we really need to do that as an emergency?
I'm going to ask the auditor how that affects her job.
It doesn't affect my job, it affects Kim's job. So it doesn't bother me either way.
I think from what I understood and when I spoke with Kim about it, the problem that makes is that she's going to get the initial pay rate, and then when that gets to the end of its third reading and then 30 days later it becomes effective, then they have to pay her even more. And I think that affects her negatively on taxes as well.
I can see that.
So that's almost 2 months
Yeah.
before she'd actually see the change.
So I'll ask you to clarify your motion one way or the other, sir.
I'd like to make a motion, pass it as regular.
Okay, I have a motion on the floor to pass it as regular legislation, putting 238-2024 as originally written back to full council.
I'll second that.
All right, is there any further discussion?
No.
All right, I'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Me,
Yes.
Mr. Moritz,
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon,
No.
and I'm a yes. Motion carries. All right, Auditor Lewis, are you the one that'll discuss a contract with the Auditor of State?
So we have, since I have been working for the city, we have always contracted with the Auditor of State to do our gap conversion services. We have not had to pass a resolution or ordinance in a while. I think Miranda looked at the last time we did, it said 2011 was the last time we passed one, and it was for 3 years. On the engagement letter she'd sent me that Tommy and I both signed off on, there's a portion for a ordinance or resolution. So I'm bringing it to committee to pass one, but it's just for 1 year for the gap conversion for year 2024.
All right, is there a dollar amount that needs included in that?
I don't have that
And
on,
does that need
sorry.
passed by any certain date?
It would need passed by the first meeting in January. She has to have it back by January 8th.
Okay. So that's our next meeting, and we need a dollar amount to request in the legislation.
Could we recess and I run and grab the letter really quickly?
You can go and get that, and we can go on to our next project, or next line item, and we'll come back to that when you come back, if that's okay.
Sounds good.
The next one was donations towards airport projects, and I guess I'll wait for you, because I had a question for you on this one too, so we'll just,
Hey, Kaylee, on your way by, there's some water left over from
Yeah.
the arbitration.
Okay, thank you.
Kaylee, Vicki just pointed out that it does show it in the piece here at $36,750.
Okay, I do have that piece in front of me. I didn't print that one since we weren't going to be going over the special meetings.
Yep. Thank you. Okay, so if that's the case, we're requesting legislation authorizing them to enter into the contract with the Auditor of State for the gap conversion services for a dollar amount of $36,750. And that's as an emergency. I'll request that.
That is also as a resolution of the...
Yes. So do I hear a motion requesting that legislation as emergency?
I'll make a motion as it, been here too long today, as a resolution emergency to pass that
Second.
for 1 year.
All right, I have a motion by Mr. Moritz and a second by Mr. Me. Is there any discussion? If not, we'll do a roll call vote. Mr. Moritz?
Yes.
Mr. Me?
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon?
Yes.
And I'm a yes as well. Okay, on the donations toward airport projects, the Airport Commission has already stated that they would work on forming a 501c3. I'm assuming at some point we will need a line item in the budget for any donations that come in. Are you wanting to do that now or when they are ready to make any donations?
I would like to have further discussions with them first.
Okay.
We have funds for like fire donations, police donations. We could create a fund for airport donations as well. Thank you.
So we will leave that on our open projects, and you let me know when you're ready to discuss it. We won't need to put it on the agenda unless the auditor tells us that we're ready to discuss it. The next topic is the Bratwurst Festival Safety Forces and Cleanup Services. I spoke to the service director. He's not yet prepared to give that number. He says at our next meeting, hopefully he'll have that. So we will table that and put that on the agenda for our next Finance Committee meeting. All right, internet auctions. We do have to request legislation, and what this one, as we talked about the other night, we would request this for the calendar year 2025. And you have before you in your packet Resolution 211-2021 as a reference.
Yeah.
And what this does is it authorizes the administration to dispose of items through internet auction. So we would just need a motion requesting legislation authorizing that.
I'll make a motion to request resolution to stating that the administration can hold the internet auction.
Second.
Is that as an emergency, Mr. Ritz, or?
As an emergency?
The legislation is, oh no, excuse me, I'm sorry.
I'm asking if your motion is requesting emergency legislation or regular legislation?
I don't think we're gonna have to have an emergency, do we, Tom?
When is it supposed to be?
Better so we can start selling.
It would be better, that way you're not waiting 2 months for them to.
Okay, as an emergency then.
Okay. So your motion to clarify is requesting emergency legislation authorizing the administration to use internet auctions in calendar year 2025.
Yes.
Second.
All right. I have a motion by Mr. Moritz and a second by Mr. Me. Is there any further discussion? If not, I'll do a roll call. Mr. Moritz.
Yes.
Mr. Me.
Yes.
Mrs. Dishon.
Yes.
I'm also a yes, that motion carries. Mr. Me, is there any open projects you wish to discuss?
No, sir, not at this time.
Mr. Moritz.
No.
Mrs. Dishon.
No.
All right. Is there any public participation?
Greg White, 1125 Hillcrest Drive. So, I know there was a lot of numbers thrown out here tonight. So we are cutting certain projects in the budget for streets, sewers, water lines, correct? So, but then in turn, according to this ordinance for the pay raises, including the clerk, that we're going to spend $102,288 in raises for 2025. So if something happens to like a sewer interceptor, major water lines that maybe break over the wintertime, are we going to have enough money to cover all this?
We do have, so there are some lines where, and they wouldn't necessarily be in here because they wouldn't have a large change, where we would have a amount of money for general contracted services or something like that.
So we don't have the money then? If some major breaks or 4 or 5 projects break over, we do or don't?
So we have a certain money in lines that aren't reserved. So for some of those lines I was talking about for like outside contractors, there's extra money there. So like an extra $50,000 or something like that in case something happens.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So my thing is this, and I'm going to point this out again, for the citizens that are listening, $102,288 in raises to city employees that do not work in the trenches, that aren't working out on the streets, yet we might be cutting the police department down to 2 guys per shift. Unrealistic. Thank you.
Any other public participant?
I'm so sorry. One thing I forgot to mention, that when I was a union steward, one of the things that the union begrudgingly did not care for, but during a budget issue and a staffing issue, one of the things I know they utilized were intermittent employees that weren't full union. I believe their pay was considered different to stop the bleed when it came to like overtime. I don't know if that's something that can even be put into or just debated in the next contract. It's just something that I didn't know. If it wasn't on the radar, I just would feel remiss not to mention it, so.
Thank you. Any other public participation?
I won't touch it this time.
Thanks.
Bob Taylor, 411 Plymouth. So as you're talking about legislation, and obviously there's still concern, like Greg just brought up concern for laying off police department again, just like the time you passed you guys, whoever was on council then, I just know you were there, right? Could you not pass minimum manpower that would raise the minimum manpower for the police department to put those guys at